What if Harry discovered his magic could only grow through soul bonds and created a coven of powerful witches? Hello guys, welcome to Soul Fiction. So in this video, we will see what if Harry discovered his magic could only grow through soul bonds and created a coven of powerful witches? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now let's start the story. Chapter 1. The dying light. Harry's wand clattered against the bathroom tiles 3 seconds before his knees hit the floor. He'd been brushing his teeth, just standing there, minty foam in his mouth, staring at his own bloodshot eyes in the mirror, when his magic decided to eat itself alive. That's what it felt like. Anyway, like something inside his chest had turned hungry and started chewing through his insides. Bloody. He couldn't finish the curse. His vision went white at the edges, then red, then a kind of gray that felt like television static looks. His hands found the edge of the sink, held on, lost their grip. The floor was cold. That was nice, actually. The rest of him felt like he'd swallowed a furnace. Aunt Petunia was going to kill him if he died on her bathroom floor. The thought struck him as genuinely funny, which probably meant he was losing it. He tried to laugh and produced something closer to a wheeze. His magic pulsed again. Wrong. It felt wrong. Like a heartbeat skipping, like an engine misfiring. He'd felt echoes of this before. After the graveyard, after watching Cedric die, after the Dementors and the hearing and the endless summer of silence from everyone who was supposed to care about him. Little moments where his wand felt heavy, where spells came out weaker than they should, where he woke up exhausted no matter how much he slept. He'd ignored it, because that's what Harry Potter did. He ignored things until they tried to kill him, and then he improvised. Improvisation wasn't going to work this time. The bathroom door burst open. Harry managed to turn his head just enough to see Dudley's massive frame filling the doorway. Face slack with something that might have been shock or might have been the lingering effects of last night's beer. "Mom!" Dudley's voice cracked. "Mom! The freak's dying or something." "Not a freak," Harry mumbled into the tiles. His vision was going dark now, tunneling down to a single point of light. And don't let her call anyone. Not safe. He wasn't sure if Dudley heard him. Wasn't sure of much, actually, except that his magic was screaming and he couldn't make it stop. The last thing he saw before consciousness gave up on him entirely was a house elf's enormous green eyes materializing 2 inches from his face. "Harry Potter must not die," Dobby said, ears flattening with determination. "Dobby will not allow it." Then everything went black. Daphne Greengrass had been having a perfectly acceptable summer. Acceptable meaning boring. Acceptable meaning safe. Acceptable meaning she spent her days in the family library researching curse theory, while her mother made increasingly unsubtle comments about marriage contracts and her father pretended the Dark Lord hadn't actually returned. She'd take boring. After 4 years at Hogwarts watching Potter and his merry band of Gryffindors stumble through one near-death experience after another, boring sounded like a vacation. So when a house elf appeared in her bedroom at 3 in the morning, wringing its hands and babbling about the great Harry Potter sir dying, Daphne's first instinct was to hex first and ask questions never. "Please." The elf, Dobby, apparently, dodged her stunner with surprising agility. "Miss Greengrass must help. You is knowing about magical sicknesses. Harry Potter's magic is eating him alive. Then take him to St. Mungo's." Daphne lowered her wand slightly but didn't put it away. "I'm a 15-year-old student, not a healer. Cannot. Is not safe. Bad Wizards is watching the hospital, watching everywhere Harry Potter might go. Dobby is not knowing who to trust." The elf's eyes filled with tears. "Dobby is only knowing that Greengrass family is being neutral, is knowing about magical cores, is not being in the bad man's pocket or the old man's pocket." Daphne processed this. The bad man was obviously the Dark Lord. The old man, Dumbledore? That was interesting. Why me specifically? My father is the expert, not. Because Miss is being Harry Potter's age. Because Miss is having her own magical problems. Dobby's voice dropped. Dobby is hearing things. Dobby is knowing about the Greengrass curse. Is knowing Miss needs stabilizing too. Her blood went cold. Nobody was supposed to know about that. The curse that ran through her mother's bloodline, the one that made greengrass women's magic increasingly unstable after puberty, the reason her family had spent generations studying magical cores and bonds and stabilization rituals. The reason Astoria was already showing symptoms at 13. The reason Daphne woke up some nights with her magic crackling uncontrollably around her, breaking things, hurting things barely contained. How do you? Is not important now. Dobby grabbed her hand with surprising strength. Is only important that Harry Potter is dying and Miss can be saving him and maybe Harry Potter can be saving Miss too. Please. Dobby is begging. Daphne thought about the smart play, the safe play, telling her father, letting him handle it, staying out of whatever mess Potter had gotten himself into this time. Then she thought about Astoria, 11 years old and already afraid of her own magic. Then she thought about the way her hands shook some mornings, the way her control was slipping, the way every specialist her father consulted said the same thing. Without intervention, greengrass women burned out before 40. Fine, she heard herself say. Take me to him. The Muggle house was exactly as pathetic as she'd expected. Daphne surveyed the cramped bedroom with its broken furniture, its bars on the window bars like he was a prisoner, what the hell, and the too small bed where Harry Potter lay unconscious and gray-skinned and clearly dying. His magic was visible. That's how bad it was. Little sparks of it kept escaping his skin, golden light that flickered and died, over and over, like a candle fighting against a storm. How long has he been like this? Dobby is finding him 2 hours ago. Has not woken up since. Daphne moved closer, running diagnostic spells she'd learned from her father's books. What she found made her stomach drop. His magical core wasn't just unstable. It was collapsing, folding in on itself like a star going supernova, except instead of exploding outward, it was imploding, consuming its own energy in an endless feedback loop. She'd read about this. Theoretical cases, mostly, but there had been documentation. Wizards whose cores developed wrong, whose magic couldn't regenerate normally, who needed external sources to survive. He needs a bond, she said out loud, not quite believing it. His core can't sustain itself. It needs to connect to another magical source or it'll just eat itself alive. Then Miss must be bonding with him. It's not that simple, you stupid elf. Daphne ran a hand through her hair, trying to think. Soul bonds don't just happen because you want them to. They require compatibility, emotional resonance, shared magical wavelengths. Potter's body convulsed. More golden sparks, brighter this time, more desperate. His magic was reaching out, she realized. Looking for something to anchor to. Finding nothing. Finding her. She felt it like a hook behind her navel. Her own unstable magic. The curse that was slowly killing her too. Suddenly recognizing something in Potter's broken core. Not compatibility exactly. More like two drowning people reaching for the same rope. Oh no. She stepped back. No, absolutely not. His magic surged toward her. Hers surged back without permission. 20 years of carefully maintained control crumbled in an instant as something fundamental shifted in Daphne's chest. The world went golden. Harry woke up slowly, which was unusual. Normally when he regained consciousness after a near-death experience. And wasn't it sad that he had a usual pattern for this? It was sudden and violent, accompanied by screaming or hexes or both. This time he drifted. Warm. Safe. Like being wrapped in a blanket that somehow existed inside his chest. And there was someone else there. Not physically, but present. A cool, sharp presence at the edge of his awareness. Like peppermint and steel and carefully controlled fury. He opened his eyes. Daphne Greengrass was sitting on the floor of his bedroom, back against the wall, watching him with an expression that promised murder. What? Harry said intelligently. Your magic almost killed you. Her voice was flat, controlled, furious beneath the surface. You have a degenerative core condition that should have been diagnosed years ago. Instead of seeking help like a rational person, you apparently decided to just ignore it until you collapsed on your bathroom floor. I didn't know. Obviously. She stood up in one fluid motion. Even at 3 in the morning, wearing what looked like hastily thrown-on robes, She managed to look like she was judging him from a throne. And now, because your idiot magic decided to latch onto the nearest compatible source, namely me, we're soul bonded. Congratulations. I hope you're happy. Harry sat up. His body felt good, actually. Better than it had in months. The constant low-level exhaustion was gone. The ache behind his eyes had vanished. And there was that presence in his chest, that cool, sharp awareness that he was somehow certain was Daphne. I can feel you, he said slowly. In my head. Not your thoughts, just you. Yes, that's what a soul bond does. She crossed her arms. We're connected now. Permanently. Our magical cores are linked. When one of us casts, we draw from a shared pool. When one of us is in danger, the other will know. We're essentially, she paused, visibly struggling with the words, magically married. Oh, Harry blinked. I don't suppose a divorce is possible? The look she gave him could have frozen fire. Right? Stupid question. He swung his legs off the bed, testing his balance. Steady. Strong. He hadn't felt this strong since ever, actually. Look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't even know what was wrong with me. No, you just suffered in noble silence like every other idiot Gryffindor. But some of the fury drained from her voice. Through their new bond, Harry felt a flash of something else. Understanding, maybe recognition. Your core can't regenerate magic on its own. It needs external connections to grow. Without bonds, it collapses. The fact that you survived this long is frankly miraculous. So I need… what? More bonds. Possibly. Probably. She looked away. My family has studied magical cores for generations. This condition isn't unheard of, just incredibly rare. Most wizards who have it die in childhood. You must have been unconsciously forming minor connections all along, to places, objects, maybe people, that kept you barely stable. Harry thought about Hogwarts. The way the castle felt like home. The way his magic always seemed stronger there. The way he'd felt something break when Sirius fell through the veil. No, don't think about that. Why you? He asked instead. Why did my magic connect to you specifically? Daphne's expression shuddered. Compatibility. Our magical signatures resonate at similar frequencies. And… she hesitated. I have my own issues. My family's bloodline carries a curse. Our magic becomes increasingly unstable as we age. Most greengrass women don't live past 40. What? It's not common knowledge. We prefer to keep our weaknesses private. Her chin lifted. But apparently our weaknesses complement each other. Your core can't generate magic alone. Mine generates too much, too chaotically. Together, she gestured vaguely, we stabilize each other. Harry processed this. He could feel the truth of it through the bond, her magic flowing into him, his providing structure and direction for hers. Two broken things making something functional. So we're both dying, he said slowly. And accidentally saving each other's lives is the thing you're mad about? I'm mad because I didn't choose this. For the first time, her composure cracked. I had plans, Potter. I was going to find a solution to my curse on my own terms. Instead, I'm bound to the most wanted wizard in Britain, target of the Dark Lord himself, and my entire future just got a lot more complicated. Fair enough. Harry stood up fully, and she tensed, but he just extended his hand. I'm sorry, really. If I'd known what was happening, I would have, well, probably still almost died, but maybe given you some warning first. She stared at his hand like it might bite her. This doesn't make us friends, she said finally. This doesn't make us anything except two people stuck with each other. Understood. And we're going to figure out how to manage this bond without it taking over our lives. Absolutely. And if you tell anyone about my family's curse, I will make your life significantly more unpleasant than the Dark Lord ever could. Harry grinned. He couldn't help it. Here he was, in his terrible bedroom in his terrible house, apparently magically married to a Slytherin Ice Queen, and somehow things felt more right than they had in months. Greengrass. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful, partnership. She shook his hand once, firmly, then dropped it like it burned. Fine. Partnership. Now we need to leave. The magical surge from our bond forming will have triggered every monitoring ward in Britain. The ministry will be here within the hour. Where do we go? I don't know yet, but anywhere is better than... She paused, looking around the room. At the bars on the window, the locks on the outside of the door, the cat flap at the bottom. For God's sake. Potter, have you been living like a prisoner in this house? It's not that bad. Through the bond, he felt her disbelief, her anger, her something that felt almost like concern quickly suppressed. It's that bad, she said quietly. I can feel what you feel. You can't lie to me about this. Harry didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. We're leaving, Daphne announced. Now, Dobby? The house elf appeared with a crack. Yes, Miss Greengrass? Can you transport both of us somewhere safe? Somewhere neither the ministry nor the Dark Lord's people will think to look. Dobby's ears perked up. Dobby is knowing many places. Harry Potter Sir helped free Dobby, so Dobby is knowing the hidden spots where free elves go. Is safe. Is secret. Then take us there. Wait. Harry grabbed his wand from the floor, shoved his few important possessions into a bag with practice speed. Invisibility cloak, photo album, Dad's mirror, firebolt, shrunk, everything that mattered. Okay, ready. Daphne took his arm. Her grip was firm, impersonal. But through the bond, he felt her nervousness, her determination, her grudging respect that he could pack up his entire life in 30 seconds without looking back. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I don't regret saving your life, just the part where it became my responsibility to keep saving it. I'll try to make that as easy as possible. You won't. You're Harry Potter. Trouble finds you like a homing spell. Then I guess it's a good thing I've got backup now. Dobby grabbed both their hands, and the world compressed around them. They landed in a forest. Not just any forest. A grove of trees so ancient they made the forbidden forest look like a garden. Silver moonlight filtered through leaves that seemed to glow with their own inner light, and the air tasted like magic, thick and old and wild. Where are we? Harry asked. The between places. Dobby's voice was reverent. Where free elves go to be safe. Wizards is not knowing about it. Is hidden in the cracks of the world. Daphne was scanning their surroundings with a professional eye. The magical density here is remarkable. Natural ley line convergence, probably multiple. No wonder it's hidden. It would drive most detection spells haywire. Is safe for now, Dobby confirmed. But not forever. Harry Potter and Miss Greengrass is needing a real place. A home. Home. The word hit Harry strangely. He'd never really had one of those. Hogwarts was close, but it belonged to everyone. The Dursleys' house was just a place he survived. We need information first, Daphne said, practical as always. We need to understand exactly what Harry's condition requires. How many bonds? What kind? Is there a way to treat the underlying cause? Or is management our only option? Your family knows more about this than anyone else, right? Harry asked. Yes, but I can't exactly show up at home with you in tow. My father may be neutral, but harboring an escaped target of both the Ministry and the Dark Lord is rather more commitment than neutrality allows. Then we research on our own. Is there a library here? Books? Anything? Dobby's ears drooped. The between places is not having human things. Is having peace. Is having safety. Is not having libraries. Harry and Daphne exchanged looks. Through the bond, he felt her frustration mirroring his own. Hogwarts, she said finally. The restricted section has texts on magical cores and bonds that aren't available anywhere else. But the school won't open for another month, and we can't exactly stroll in beforehand. What about private collections? The best ones are owned by families that would turn us in without blinking. Daphne paused. Although, there are rumors about a collection in France. The Delacours have gathered magical texts for centuries. And they hate the British ministry almost as much as we should right now. Harry remembered Fleur from the tournament. Proud. Powerful. She'd been cold to him initially, dismissive, But after the second task, after he'd saved her sister, something had shifted. I might be able to contact Fleur, he said slowly. We didn't exactly part as friends, but she owes me for Gabrielle. Then that's our first move. We establish secure communication with the Delacours, request access to their archives, and figure out what we're dealing with. Daphne's voice was steadier now that they had a plan. In the meantime, we need to set up basic wards, establish supply lines, and figure out how to survive indefinitely off the grid. You've thought about this before. My family plans for everything. Contingencies for contingencies. She almost smiled. Being a Slytherin isn't just about ambition, Potter. It's about never being caught unprepared. Harry. What? If we're bonded, if we're going to be partners in this, you should call me Harry. Potter. Feels weird now that I can literally feel your emotions. She considered this. Fine. Harry. You may call me Daphne. A pause. In private. In public, maintain distance. The longer we can conceal the bond's existence, the better. Agreed. They set up camp in silence after that. Dobby producing supplies from somewhere, Daphne casting wards with a precision that impressed Harry despite himself. Harry gathering firewood with probably too much enthusiasm just to have something physical to do. It was strange working alongside her. He'd spent 4 years at Hogwarts barely exchanging a word with Daphne Greengrass. She was Slytherin. He was Gryffindor. She was Ice Queen. He was the boy who lived. They existed in separate worlds that occasionally collided in classrooms. Now he could feel her exhaustion seeping through the bond. Her fear carefully controlled but present. Her grudging warmth when she watched him struggle to set up the tent the Muggle way before giving up and letting Dobby do it magically. You're not what I expected, she said eventually, settling onto a conjured seat near the fire. Neither are you. What did you expect? Harry thought about it. Cold. Calculating. Only out for yourself. And now. Cold. Calculating. But also kind of terrified underneath. And determined to survive no matter what. He met her eyes. I can work with that. How flattering. But she didn't deny it. You're not the reckless idiot I thought either. There's actually a brain in there somewhere. You just ignore it most of the time. Only during life or death situations. It's a strategy. A terrible one. It's worked so far. You nearly died on your bathroom floor. Okay. It's worked mostly so far. She laughed. It was small, surprised, quickly suppressed. But it was there. Harry felt it through the bond like sunlight breaking through clouds. We should sleep, she said, standing. Dobby can take first watch. Tomorrow we contact the Delacours and figure out how to keep you alive long enough to be useful. Useful to who? To me, obviously. I didn't save your life just to watch you waste it. She disappeared into one of the tents Dobby had provided. Harry watched her go, feeling the bond stretch between them like a golden thread. He was soul-bonded to Daphne Greengrass. He was on the run from everyone. His magic had been killing him and might still if he couldn't find more connections. And somehow, despite everything, he felt more hope than he had in months. Dobby, he said quietly, thank you for coming to get me, for finding her. Dobby would do anything for Harry Potter. The elf's eyes were shining. Harry Potter gave Dobby freedom. Is only fair Dobby gives Harry Potter a chance at living. I think you did more than that. Harry looked at the tent where Daphne had gone. I think you might have given me something I didn't know I needed. A friend. Maybe. Or at least the possibility of one. He went to bed with the bond humming warmly in his chest and Daphne's presence a cool comfort at the edge of his mind. Morning in the between places came strangely. No sunrise, just a gradual lightening of the silver glow that suffused everything. Harry woke feeling genuinely rested for the first time since he could remember. Daphne was already up, running diagnostic spells on herself and muttering notes into a conjured notebook. Through the bond, he could feel her analytical focus, the way her mind processed information in neat organized patterns completely unlike his own chaotic intuition. You're awake, she said without looking up. Good. We need to assess the bond's effects. Good morning to you too. This isn't the time for pleasantries. But she passed him a cup of tea that Dobby must have prepared. I've been monitoring our magical signatures for the past hour. The bond has already stabilized both our cores significantly. My output is down to manageable levels. Your input appears to be maintaining itself without additional drain. In English, we're not dying anymore. At least not immediately. Great. Love starting the day with not dying. She finally looked at him, and there was something almost like amusement in her expression. You use humor as a defense mechanism. Is that your professional analysis? I can feel your emotions now, remember? Every time something serious comes up, you deflect with jokes. It's actually fascinating from a psychological perspective. I'm glad my trauma entertains you. It doesn't entertain me. She paused, choosing her words carefully. It makes me understand you better than I expected to. The masks you wear aren't so different from mine. Harry didn't have a joke for that one. Okay, he said instead. Assessment. What do we need to know? Daphne nodded, accepting the subject change. First, the bond's current strength. Based on my measurements, we're operating at approximately 40% of what a fully realized soul bond would provide. The connection formed under emergency circumstances, so it's stable but not optimized. Can we optimize it? Theoretically, soul bonds strengthen through emotional intimacy, shared experiences, and conscious effort. The more we actually connect as people, the more magical benefit we both receive. Harry processed this. So we have to become friends? For magic reasons. Or more, potentially. Daphne's voice was carefully neutral. Historical records suggest that soul bonds between romantic partners are significantly stronger than platonic ones. But that's not something either of us should feel obligated to pursue. Forced intimacy would be counterproductive anyway. The bond knows the difference between genuine connection and performance. Right? So no pretending to like each other. No. If this is going to work, it has to be real. She met his eyes. I suggest we start with honesty. Complete honesty. About our situations, our fears, our goals. The bond makes lying difficult anyway. I can feel when you're being evasive, so we might as well commit to transparency. You first. She raised an eyebrow. What? You suggested it. Fine. She set down her notebook, turning to face him fully. Honesty. I am terrified of dying young like my grandmother and great-grandmother. I have spent the past 3 years preparing to research a cure independently because I don't trust anyone else to care enough. I chose Slytherin because it values self-preservation, and self-preservation is all I've had. I am not a good person by Gryffindor standards. I am ruthless when necessary and I don't apologize for it. But I am loyal to those who earn it, and I don't betray my own. Harry felt the truth of every word through the bond. Her fear, her determination, her carefully constructed walls and the vulnerability beneath them. My turn, he asked. If you're willing. Okay. Honesty. He took a breath. I am tired. Not just physically, though that too, but tired of fighting, tired of losing people, tired of being the one everyone expects to fix things. I pretend confidence because falling apart isn't an option. I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time. I make reckless choices because the careful ones never seem to work anyway. I've never had anyone I could really rely on. Dumbledore has his agenda. Ron and Hermione mean well but can't understand Sirius is. His voice caught. Sirius was the closest thing I had to family and now he's gone. Daphne was quiet for a moment. Then, unexpectedly, she reached out and placed her hand over his. I'm not good at comfort, she said. But I want you to know that I heard you, and I'm not going anywhere. Not because of the bond, because running away from problems isn't how I operate. Slytherin self-preservation? Slytherin stubbornness. Different thing entirely. Harry found himself laughing. Felt rusty, unpracticed, but real. Okay. This might actually work. Don't sound so surprised. I'm very good at making things work. I believe you. They sat there for a moment, hands touching, bond humming between them. It wasn't romantic. Not yet, maybe not ever. But it was something. Connection. trust in its earliest, most fragile form. Then Dobby appeared with a crack, ears flattened with worry. "Harry Potter, sir. Miss Greengrass. Someone is coming through the between places. Someone powerful. Someone with wings." Daphne was on her feet instantly, wand out. Harry followed a half-second behind. "Wings?" he asked. "Vila," Daphne breathed. "It has to be. But how would they?" A figure burst through the trees, silver blonde hair streaming behind her, blue fire dancing at her fingertips. She was breathing hard, bleeding from a cut on her cheek, and her eyes were wild with desperation. Fleur Delacour stumbled to a stop in their clearing, took in Harry and Daphne with their wands raised, and spoke rapidly. "Harry Potter, you must help me. They are killing us. Capturing us. Someone is hunting Vila across Europe and I have nowhere else to go." "Fleur." Harry lowered his wand slightly. "What's happening? Who's hunting you?" "I do not know their names. Only that they want our magic, our blood. They have taken my cousin, my aunt." Her voice broke. "I felt your magic last night. They search, call to me across the distance like a beacon. I do not understand what you are, Harry Potter, but you are the only person I could find who might be strong enough to help." Daphne's hand found Harry's arm, gripping tight. Through the bond, he felt her warning. This could be a trap, but he also felt her compassion, her recognition of genuine fear, and he felt something else. His own magic reaching toward Fleur, sensing something compatible, something that resonated at a frequency similar to his and Daphne's. "You can stay," Harry said. "You're safe here, and then you're going to tell us everything." Fleur's shoulders sagged with relief. "Merci. Merci, She swayed, exhaustion finally catching up, and Harry caught her before she could fall. His magic surged. Hers answered, and for just a moment, he felt a second thread trying to form, golden light reaching for golden light. Daphne's sharp intake of breath told him she felt it too. "Well," she said dryly, "this is going to complicate things." They got Fleur settled in a third tent that Dobby produced from somewhere, gave her food and water and space to recover. She'd been running for 3 days, she told them between bites. Across France, through emergency portkeys, finally into the hidden paths that Vila knew about, paths that connected to the between places. "Someone is organizing Z attacks," she said, stronger now but still shaky. "They know where we live, our aunts, our gatherings. They are capturing Vila women and taking them somewhere. They ones fight back," she shuddered. "They do not survive." "How many have been taken?" Daphne asked. She'd shifted into information-gathering mode, her questions precise and clinical. 47 that we know of, across France, Spain, Bulgaria. They attacks started 2 months ago and have been escalating. Any pattern to who they target? They strongest. They most pure-blooded. Zos with ZE most potent magical signatures. Fleur's jaw tightened. "I am one of the strongest of my generation. That is why they came for me specifically." Harry thought about his conversation with Daphne, about his magic needing connections to survive, about compatible signatures, about bonds. "Fleur, when you felt my magic last night, what exactly did you sense?" She considered the question. "It is hard to explain. Vila are sensitive to magical auras. Yours was different. Like a hole in Z world that was being filled. Like something reaching out, looking for..." She stopped, eyes widening. "Looking for connections. You were forming a bond." "Yes. And now you have one." She looked at Daphne, then back at Harry. "But you are still incomplete. I can feel it. Your magic is still ungry." Daphne cut in. "Harry has a rare magical condition. His core can't sustain itself without external bonds. The more connections he forms, the stronger and more stable he becomes. And the people bonded to him also benefit," Fleur finished. "They share is power. They are strengthened by Z connection." Her expression shifted, something calculating entering her gaze. "They hunters, they want Vila magic. Want to harvest it somehow. But if Z Vila were bonded to someone like you, they couldn't be harvested, Harry realized. The magic would be shared, protected, part of a larger system. You could protect us. Fleur's voice was intense now. Not just me, all Vila. If you formed bonds with enough of us, we could create a network Zay could not break. Hold on. Harry raised his hands. I barely understand what's happening with one bond. I can't just start collecting them like trading cards. Why not? Daphne asked. At his surprised look, she shrugged. It's a valid question. Your magic needs bonds to survive. Vila are apparently being hunted. If forming connections solves both problems. Because it's not that simple. I can feel what a soul bond means. It's intimate, personal. I can't just bond with people I don't know, don't trust, don't care about. Fleur's voice was soft. Is that the requirement? You must care. I think so. Daphne and I only bonded because we were both dying and our magic recognized something in each other. It wasn't a choice. It was survival. Then we make it a choice. Fleur moved closer, and Harry felt his magic stir again, reaching toward her despite his hesitation. I am not asking you to bond with me right now, Harry Potter. I am asking you to let me stay. Let me prove myself. Let me earn your trust the way you have already begun earning mine. I saved Gabrielle almost by accident. You saved my sister when you did not have to. When Z task did not require it. When everyone else would have left her because she was not their responsibility. Fleur's eyes blazed. That is not accident. That is character. And I would very much like to know the person capable of such choices. Harry looked at Daphne. Through the bond, he felt her assessment. Fleur is genuine. She's scared and desperate but not lying. And she's right that this could benefit everyone. Okay, he said finally. You can stay. We can get to know each other. But I'm not promising anything about bonds or networks or whatever else. This isn't a business arrangement. I understand. Fleur's smile was small but real. Merci, Harry. I will not make you regret this. Famous last words, Daphne muttered. But there was no real heat in it. Over the next week, they settled into a routine. Mornings were for training. Harry and Daphne worked on combining their magic through the bond, learning to cast together, to share power seamlessly. It was difficult at first. Their instincts were different, their approaches to magic fundamentally opposed, but slowly they found a rhythm. Fleur watched at first, then started joining in. Her Vila magic was unlike anything Harry had experienced. Wild and fierce and beautiful, fire made manifest. When she dueled Daphne, the clearing filled with flames and ice, elemental forces clashing. When she dueled Harry, his magic reached for hers so insistently that he had to consciously hold it back. Your magic wants me, Fleur observed after one such session. It recognizes that we would be compatible. That doesn't mean I should just give in to it. No, but it means the choice when you make it would be easy. She tilted her head. Why do you resist so hard? Most wizards would be eager to bond with a Vila. Harry thought about the question seriously. Because I don't want to use people, even if it would benefit both of us. I want any bond one form to be because of who someone is, not what they can do for me. Fleur was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, You are a very strange wizard, Harry Potter. I get that a lot. Afternoons were for research. Daphne had brought books. Of course she had. She'd grabbed an emergency bag before leaving home that contained 3 different texts on magical cores. Fleur added knowledge from the Vila oral traditions, stories about bonds and connections that predated written wizarding history. Zay's oldest stories speak of a time when all magical beings were connected, she told them one evening. A great network of shared powers that spans the world. Then something appeared. A war, a catastrophe nobody knows, and Z connections broke. Wizards forgot how to bond. Vila remembered but lost the ability to bond outside our own kind. And some of us were left between with magic that could only survive through connection. Like me, Harry said. Like you. There are maybe a handful born each century. Most die young, never understanding what they need. They few, survive. Fleur's expression was thoughtful. They stories say they change the world. For better or worse. No pressure, Daphne said dryly. Evenings were for talking. Real conversations, not just strategy sessions. Harry learned that Fleur had always felt like an outsider despite her beauty, or because of it. That she'd entered the Triwizard Tournament to prove she was more than just a pretty face. That she worried constantly about Gabrielle, who showed signs of being even more powerful than Fleur herself. He learned that Daphne had a younger sister too, Astoria, who was already manifesting the family curse. That Daphne had promised herself she'd find a cure before Astoria's symptoms became dangerous. That the Ice Queen Act was armor against a world that wanted to use her family's wealth and knowledge without caring about the people underneath. And they learned about him, the cupboard under the stairs, the years of hunger and isolation, the way Hogwarts had been the first place he'd ever felt like he belonged, and the way that belonging was always conditional on him being the hero. "That is why your magic is different," Fleur said after one such confession. "You were starved. Not just for food but for connection. Your core adapted to survive on almost nothing, but it never stopped hungering. Now that it knows connection is possible, it wants everything it was denied," Harry finished. "Yeah, I figured. This is not a weakness." Fleur's voice was firm. "This is strength waiting to be realized. You have the capacity for more bonds than anyone in living memory. You could build something incredible. Or I could hurt people. If bonds are about genuine connection and I form one wrong, or betray someone's trust, or you could try," Daphne interrupted, "and succeed. Why do you always assume the worst outcome?" "Experience. Experience with people who didn't value you." She held his gaze. "I value you. Fleur values you. And neither of us is going anywhere. So maybe start from there instead of from every failure that came before." Harry didn't have an argument for that. The attack came at dawn on the 8th day. Harry woke to the bond screaming warning. Daphne's fear and battle readiness flooding through the connection. He was moving before he was fully conscious, wand in hand, bursting out of his tent to find chaos. Black-robed figures had breached the between places somehow, a dozen of them at least, and they moved with military precision. Fleur was already fighting, fire pouring from her hands, but two of them had devices that seemed to absorb her flames. Daphne was back-to-back with Dobby. The elf-wielding magic Harry had never seen a house elf use, but more attackers kept coming. Harry's magic surged. The bond with Daphne amplified it, focused it, and his first spell hit like a physical force, slamming 3 attackers into trees hard enough to crack bark. "Harry!" Fleur's voice cut through the noise. "ZE1 in gray. E is Z leader." Harry saw him, taller than the others, moving with casual confidence while his people did the fighting. He was watching Harry with interest, studying him like a specimen. Then he spoke, and his voice carried perfectly despite the battle. "Mr. Potter, you're even more remarkable than the reports suggested. A natural bond former with a greengrass and a Delacour already connected? The architect will be very pleased." "The architect?" Harry parried a curse, sent back a stunner that dropped its target. "Who the hell is that?" "Your future employer. Or your executioner. The choice will be yours." The gray-robed leader raised his hand, and the attackers began falling back. "This was a test, Mr. Potter. We needed to see what you could do under pressure. You've exceeded expectations." "A test?" Daphne's voice was furious. "You attacked us, tried to capture Fleur's people as a test?" The Vila hunts served multiple purposes. Drawing out beings with compatible magical signatures, acquiring subjects for research, and, yes, testing whether certain rumors about Mr. Potter were true. The man's smile was cold. "They were. You'll be hearing from us again." He disapparated. One by one, his people followed, taking their fallen with them until the clearing was empty except for Harry, Daphne, Fleur, and Dobby. Silence. Then Fleur swore in French, fluently and at length. "Who the hell is the architect?" she demanded. I've been running from these people for weeks and I never heard that name. Neither have I, Daphne said grimly. But someone with enough resources to track us here, breach the between places, and stage an attack just to test Harry's abilities? That's not a minor player. Harry's mind was racing. He said I'd exceeded expectations. That means they knew about my magic somehow. Knew about bonds. How? The Ministry? Daphne suggested. They monitor for unusual magical signatures. If someone inside has access to those records. Or Dumbledore. The words tasted bitter. He's known about me since I was a baby. If anyone understands my magic, it's him. You think Dumbledore would tell this architect about you? I think Dumbledore tells people things when it serves his greater good. And I don't know what that is anymore. Fleur moved closer, putting her hand on his arm. The near bond between them pulsed, and Harry realized he'd been unconsciously reaching for her during the fight, trying to form the connection that would let them share power like he did with Daphne. Whatever is appealing, she said quietly. Oh, ever this architect is, the answer is the same. We must get stronger, smarter, more connected. She's right, Daphne agreed. Whoever attacked us will be back. We need allies, resources, a real base of operations, not a hidden grove we can apparently be found in. And I need to stop pretending I can avoid what I am. Harry looked at Fleur. You said your magic recognized mine. That we'd be compatible. Yes. Would you? I mean, if you wanted to. Harry. Her smile was gentle. I've been waiting for you to ask since the day I arrived. It's not going to be easy. The bond requires genuine emotion, and we've only known each other a week. A week in which you opened your home to me, protected me, shared your deepest fears. Her hand moved from his arm to his face. I do not give my trust easily either, Harry Potter. You have earned it. Harry reached for his magic and let it reach back. The bond formed differently than with Daphne. Not a desperate grasping in the dark, but a deliberate choice. Two compatible forces recognizing each other and deciding to connect. It was warm where Daphne's was cool, fierce where hers was steady. And when it settled into place beside the first bond, Harry felt the difference immediately. Stronger, more stable. His magical core hummed with power it hadn't possessed before, and through both bonds, he could feel Daphne and Fleur feeling it too. Mon Dieu, Fleur breathed. I can feel everything, both of you, and Z power. Two bonds. Daphne's voice was thoughtful. Two bonds, and already you're stronger than most adult wizards. How many before you're strong enough to face whoever this architect is? I don't know, but we're going to find out. Harry looked at both of them, his partners, his bonded, the beginning of something he didn't have a name for yet. We need a plan, a real one. We need to figure out who's hunting us, why they want my power, and how to stop them. We need allies, Fleur added. More people we can trust. More potential bonds if they are willing. And we need a home. Daphne's expression shifted. I have an idea about that. There's a property. An old estate that belongs to my family but hasn't been used in decades. My father probably won't even notice if we claim it. Is it safe? It's warded by generations of greengrass paranoia. I'd say it's one of the safest places in Britain. Then let us go there. Fleur's eyes were bright with determination. Let us make it into something more than a hideout. Let us make it into a fortress. Harry felt both bonds pulse with shared resolve. Daphne's cool determination. Fleur's fierce hope. His own stubborn refusal to give up. All right, he said. Let's build something they'll never be able to tear down. They left the between places that afternoon. Dobby transported them to the outskirts of the Greengrass estate, an old manor house in the Scottish Highlands, surrounded by wild gardens and crumbling walls. It looked abandoned, forgotten, exactly the kind of place no one would think to search. The wards will recognize my blood, Daphne said, approaching the gate. Give me a moment to... Oh, what? She turned back to them with a strange expression. The wards already recognize you. Both of you. The soul bonds were family now, magically speaking. The protections see you as green grasses. Harry stepped through the gate and felt the wards wash over him. Old magic, layered and complex, accepting him into their protection. Welcoming him home. Home. The word didn't feel strange anymore. "Let's get started," he said. "We've got a lot of work to do." Behind them, somewhere in the distance, powers were moving. The architect, whoever he was, had plans for Harry's magic. The Ministry would be searching. Dumbledore would be scheming. Voldemort would hear eventually. Let them come. Harry had connections now. Had power. Had people who chose to stand with him. And he was just getting started. Chapter 2. Ice and Fire. Fleur's scream woke Harry from a dead sleep. He was on his feet before conscious thought caught up, wand in hand, already running toward her room. Through the bonds, he felt Daphne doing the same from the opposite wing of the manor. Her alertness spiking from 0 to combat ready in the space of a heartbeat. Fleur's door was locked. Harry blasted it off its hinges without slowing down. She was sitting up in bed, silver blonde hair wild around her face, blue flames dancing across her skin. Not attacking flames, defensive ones. The instinctive fire of a Vila who'd woken from nightmare into perceived threat. "Fleur." Harry kept his voice steady, approaching slowly. "It's me. You're safe. We're at the manor." The flames flickered. Through their bond, he felt her terror receding, replaced by embarrassment and lingering fear. She'd been dreaming about the hunts again, about her cousin being dragged away screaming. "I am sorry." Her voice was rough. "I did not mean to." "Don't apologize." Daphne appeared in the doorway, lowering her wand. Trauma doesn't schedule itself for convenient hours. Harry sat on the edge of Fleur's bed, not touching her. The flames were still too close to the surface, but present. "Want to talk about it?" "Zay same dream. Always Z same." She pulled her knees to her chest. "Zay come in Z night. Zay ave zos devices zat drink our fire. And then zay take us somewhere dark and cold and—" She shuddered. "I wake before I see what appends next. Perhaps zat is mercy." "We're going to find them," Harry said. "Whoever this architect is, whatever organization he's running, we'll find them and we'll stop them." "Ow? We ave been 2 weeks and we know nothing more zon when we arrived." She wasn't wrong. 2 weeks of research, of careful inquiries through Dobby's network of free elves, of Daphne reaching out to neutral contacts in the magical world. They'd learned that the Vila hunts had stopped, presumably because the hunters had found what they were really looking for in Harry, but nothing about who was behind them or where the captured Vila had been taken. "Actually," Daphne said slowly, "that's not entirely true. I received a response tonight, before I went to sleep." Harry turned. "From who?" "Andromeda Tonks." The name meant nothing to Harry, but Fleur inhaled sharply. "Who is that?" "My mother's cousin, technically. She was disowned from the Black family for marrying a Muggleborn." Daphne's expression was carefully neutral. "She's also the mother of Nymphadora Tonks, an Auror who's been asking questions about Harry's disappearance." "An Auror?" Harry's guard went up immediately. "How do we know she's not trying to find us for the Ministry?" "Because Andromeda made it very clear that her daughter isn't working for the Ministry anymore. Not officially." Daphne pulled a folded letter from her robe pocket. "Apparently Tonks discovered something during her investigation. Something that made her go rogue. She wants to meet. This could be a trap." "It could be. But Andromeda also included information as a gesture of good faith." Daphne unfolded the letter. "The architect. She has a name." Harry went very still. "Who?" "Arcturus Knott. Theodore Knott's grandfather. A Death Eater who supposedly died 15 years ago." Daphne's voice was tight. "Except he didn't die. He went underground, built an organization, and has been manipulating magical Britain from the shadows ever since." "Knott." Harry remembered Theodore from school. Quiet, watchful, always seeming to know more than he let on. "His grandson is in our year." "Yes, and apparently completely unaware of his grandfather's survival. Or so Andromeda claims." Daphne set the letter down. "The question is whether we trust this information enough to meet with Tonks." Through the bond, Harry felt Fleur's fear warring with her desperate need for answers. Felt Daphne's analytical mind weighing risks against potential gains. His own instincts were screaming caution, but also something else. He remembered Tonks from the previous year. Pink hair and clumsy energy. She'd been kind to him in a way that felt genuine, not calculated. Where does she want to meet? A pub in Muggle London. Tomorrow night. Zen we go. Fleur's flames had died completely now, replaced by determination. If Zir is any chance of learning where Zay took my family, I will take it. We don't all need to go, Daphne pointed out. Harry showing his face in public is risky. I'm not sending either of you into potential danger alone. Harry's voice left no room for argument. We go together or not at all. Daphne studied him for a moment, then nodded. Together, then. But we plan this carefully. Escape routes, backup signals, the works. Agreed. Harry stood, offering Fleur his hand. Try to get some more sleep. Tomorrow's going to be long. She took his hand and held it for a moment longer than necessary. Through the bond, he felt her gratitude, not just for the comfort, but for not treating her fear as weakness. Airy. Her voice was soft. Thank you. For not making me feel broken. You're not broken. You're surviving. There's a difference. He left before the moment could become something more complicated. But he felt her warmth through the bond all the way back to his room. The pub was called the Rusty Anchor, and it looked exactly like the kind of place where clandestine meetings happened in spy films. Harry had transfigured his appearance. Darker hair, different bone structure, nothing too dramatic but enough that casual recognition was unlikely. Daphne had done something similar, her ice blonde hair now a mundane brown. Only Fleur remained unchanged. Her Vila nature made magical disguises unstable. She's in Z back corner, Fleur murmured. I can feel her magical signature. She is nervous, but not hostile. Harry spotted the woman a moment later. Pink hair, because apparently Tonks didn't believe in subtlety. Hunched over a drink, eyes constantly scanning the room. She was alone, but that didn't mean much. I'll approach first, Daphne said. If it's a trap, you two can extract me. No. Harry shook his head. She's expecting me. I should be the one to. Zat is Fleur interrupted. And she has seen us. Tonks's eyes had locked onto their group with recognition that shouldn't have been possible through Harry's disguise. She raised one hand in a small wave, her expression shifting from nervous to something like relief. Watch her, she called as they approached. Nice transfiguration work, Harry, but I'm a metamorphmagus. I can see through cosmetic alterations. Occupational hazard. Harry dropped into the seat across from her, letting the disguise fade. You could have mentioned that in your letter. What letter? Mum sent that. Tonks's grin was tired but genuine. I just told her to set up the meet. Figured you'd be more likely to show if a family connection made first contact. Smart, Daphne admitted, taking the seat beside Harry. Fleur remained standing, positioning herself to watch both the door and any potential threats. So, Tonks leaned forward, all pretense of casualness dropping. You've been busy, Harry. Soul bonds with a greengrass and a Delacour? The magical monitoring department nearly had a collective stroke when those signatures registered. How much do you know? Enough to know you're not just running from the ministry. You're building something. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. And enough to know that whatever you're building, the people hunting you want it very badly. Arcturus not. Tonks nodded. Took me 3 weeks to confirm that name. The man's a ghost. Officially dead. All records scrubbed. Everyone who knew him either silenced or convinced he never existed. But he's real. And he's been pulling strings for over a decade. What does he want? Power. Control. The usual dark wizard shopping list. Tonks paused, seeming to weigh her next words carefully. But specifically, he wants your ability, Harry. The bond-forming thing. He's been trying to replicate it for years. That's what the Vila hunts were about. Vila have natural affinities for magical connections. He thought if he could study enough of them, He could figure out how to artificially create soul bonds. Fleur made a sound of disgust. He was cutting us apart to learn how we connect? Something like that. The captured villa. Tonks's expression darkened. I don't know where they are, but the experiments aren't gentle. Some of them don't survive. My cousin. My aunt. Fleur's voice was ice. Do you know if Zai are alive? I'm sorry. I don't have that information. The silence stretched. Harry felt Fleur's rage and grief through the bond. Felt Daphne's cold calculation as she processed the implications. Why are you telling us this? He asked finally. You're an oar. Shouldn't you be trying to bring me in? Tonks laughed bitterly. I was an oar. Past tense as of about 4 days ago. She pulled back her sleeve, revealing a fading bruise in the shape of fingers. When I started asking questions about not, people noticed. The wrong people. I got a visit from some colleagues who made it very clear that certain investigations weren't welcome. They attacked you? They delivered a message. Strongly. She let her sleeve fall. I could have let it go. Kept my head down. Kept my job. Pretended I hadn't seen what I'd seen. But I'm a Hufflepuff, Harry. We're not good at letting things go when people are getting hurt. So you went rogue. So I went looking for the one person who might actually be able to stop this. She met his eyes directly. Knott's organization has people everywhere. Ministry, Wisengamot, probably Hogwarts. Dumbledore's been trying to contain him for years without success. Every time he gets close, Knott slips away or the evidence disappears. Dumbledore knows about this? Dumbledore knows about everything. Doesn't mean he can fix it. Tonks's voice held an edge. The old man's got his own agenda, Harry. Always has. I'm not saying he's evil, but I am saying his version of the greater good doesn't always line up with what's actually good for the people involved. Harry thought about the summers at Privet Drive. The information withheld. The plans never explained. I know. Then you know you can't rely on him. Not completely. Tonks leaned back. But you could use some help. Someone who knows how the ministry works, who can spot trouble coming, who's got training in combat and investigation. You're offering to join us. I'm offering to help. Whatever that looks like. She shrugged. My career's torched anyway. My family's already considered blood traitors. And honestly, what you're building sounds a lot more interesting than anything I was doing at the ministry. Daphne cut in before Harry could respond. We can't just trust you because you've got a sad story. For all we know, this is an elaborate trap. Fair point. Tonks didn't seem offended. What would convince you? Information. Daphne's tone was businesslike. Real information. The location of Knott's base. Names of his key operatives. Something we can verify independently. I don't have his base location. Nobody does. That's kind of his whole thing. Tonks pulled a folded parchment from her jacket. But I do have names. 17 confirmed members of his organization, including 3 ministry officials, 2 Wisengamot members, and 1 Hogwarts professor. Daphne took the list, scanning it with growing intensity. Professor Vector? The arithmancy professor. She's been feeding him information about student magical signatures for years. How do you think Knott knew Harry was special? Harry felt cold. Someone at Hogwarts, someone he'd walked past in corridors, seen at meals, had been reporting on him since he was 11. This changes things, Fleur said quietly. If he has people inside Hogwarts, then Hogwarts isn't safe. Not for Harry. Not for anyone Knott takes an interest in. Tonks met Harry's eyes again. I know I'm asking you to take a risk, but I'm also offering something real. I'm a trained oar. I can fight, I can investigate, I can go places and do things that would draw too much attention if any of you tried them. And, she hesitated. There's one more thing. What? My metamorph abilities. They're unusual even for a metamorphmagus. More complete transformation than most can manage. Her hair shifted colors as she spoke, cycling through the spectrum. My whole life, people have told me it's a gift, but it's also made me feel like I'm not really anything. Like there's no real me underneath all the changes. Why are you telling us this? Because I felt something when I walked in here. when I got close to you. She looked at him with an expression that was almost vulnerable. Your magic. It's reaching for me the way Fleur says it reached for her. I don't know what that means, but I know it felt more real than anything I've felt in years. Harry was aware of Daphne and Fleur both watching him. Through the bonds, he felt their reactions. Daphne's wariness, Fleur's curiosity. Neither of them opposed, but both waiting to see what he would do. I'm not going to form a bond with you just because it might be tactically useful, he said finally. That's not how this works. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove I'm worth trusting. Tonks's smile was crooked. And if something more happens naturally, well, I'm not going to pretend I wouldn't welcome it. We'll verify your information, Daphne said. If it checks out, we'll talk about next steps. That's all I'm asking. Tonks stood, dropping some muggle money on the table. You can reach me through Mum. And Harry, she paused. Be careful. Not's not the only one watching you. Dumbledore's got people looking too. And the Ministry's getting pressure from somewhere to escalate their search. Noted. She left, and the three of them sat in silence for a long moment. Well, Fleur said eventually. That was interesting. She could still be playing us, Daphne pointed out. This whole thing could be designed to make us trust her. Could be. Harry watched the door Tonks had disappeared through. But did you feel her magic when she talked about feeling unreal? That wasn't an act. You cannot form bonds with everyone as a sympathetic story. Harry. I know. I'm not planning to. He stood, signaling that they should leave. But I think she's genuine, and I think we need allies too much to dismiss her out of hand. They made their way out of the pub into the London night. Harry kept his senses extended, watching for threats, but the streets were quiet. Zay information about Hogwarts, Fleur said as they walked. If not as a spy's ear, then students are in danger. Students with unusual magical signatures that might interest him. Harry's jaw tightened. Hermione, Neville, Luna, you cannot protect everyone. No, but I can warn them. He thought about it. Hermione's parents are muggles. If I could get a message to her. Too risky, Daphne cut in. Any communication could be intercepted. We don't know how deep Not's reach goes. Then what do you suggest? We focus on what we can control. Verify Tonks's information. Strengthen our position. Build our resources. She glanced at him. And then, when we're ready, we go on the offensive. And my friends, we'll find a way, but not by rushing in blind. Her voice softened slightly. I know you want to help them. That's not a bad instinct. But it'll get them killed if we act without preparation. Harry wanted to argue. Every Gryffindor instinct he had was screaming to do something, anything, right now. But he felt Daphne's logic through the bond. Felt the truth of her words, even if he didn't like them. Fine. We do this smart. He looked at Fleur. Can you reach out to other Vila? Let them know what we've learned about the hunts. I can try. Zay Vila, Ave Zir own communication networks. But Zay will be suspicious of anyone connected to wizards after what has happened. Tell them about our bond. Tell them you're safe, protected. Harry paused. Tell them there might be a way to protect others too, if they're willing to trust us. Fleur's expression was thoughtful. You are thinking of building more than just a small group. I'm thinking that we can't beat an organization with 3 people and a house elf. We need numbers. We need strength. He met her eyes. And I'm thinking that there are probably other magical beings out there who are hunted, marginalized, desperate for protection. Beings who might be willing to bond with someone who actually gives a damn about them. That is ambitious. Harry doesn't do things by halves, Daphne observed dryly. I've noticed. They operate back to the manor in stages, using relay points to confuse any tracking. By the time they arrived, dawn was breaking over the Scottish hills, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Get some rest, Harry told them. We've got a lot of work ahead. But when he finally lay down in his own bed, sleep wouldn't come. His mind kept circling back to Tonks, to the vulnerability in her voice when she talked about not feeling real. He knew that feeling, had lived with it his whole life. The boy in the cupboard, the freak, the chosen one, all masks, all performances, never quite sure who he was underneath. Maybe that was why his magic had reached for her. Not compatibility in the traditional sense, but recognition. Two people who'd spent their lives being what others needed them to be, finally meeting someone who might understand. He fell asleep thinking about connection, about trust, about the strange new family he was building piece by piece. 3 days later, Tonks's information checked out. Daphne had contacts, neutral families, information brokers, people who traded in secrets without caring about politics. She'd sent careful inquiries, received careful responses, and piece by piece confirmed that the 17 names Tonks had provided were exactly who she said they were. Minister Vector's been making deposits in a Gringotts account that doesn't officially exist, she reported over breakfast. The Wisengamot members have voting patterns that align suspiciously with Knott's known interests, and the ministry officials have all been involved in quashing investigations that got too close to uncomfortable truths. So Tonks was telling the truth. About this, at least. Daphne set down her tea. I still think we should be cautious, but I also think we should bring her in. Fleur nodded agreement. We need her skills, and her knowledge of how Z ministry operates. Then I'll send word. Harry stood. But first, there's something I need to do. What? Walk the grounds. Clear my head. He smiled at their concerned expressions. The wards will alert you if anything happens. I just need some time to think. He left before they could argue, making his way through the manor's overgrown gardens toward the small lake at the edge of the property. The morning air was cool, crisp with the promise of autumn, and his magic hummed contentedly in the ambient power of the ley lines that crossed beneath the estate. 2 weeks since he'd almost died on his bathroom floor. 2 weeks since his whole world had changed. He had power now, connections, people who actually seemed to care about him, and an enemy who wanted to use him or destroy him or both. Arcturus Knott, a dead man who wasn't dead, building an empire in the shadows. What did someone like that actually want? Power, Tonks had said, but that was too simple. Everyone wanted power of some kind. The question was what they intended to do with it. Harry sat on a rock by the lake's edge, watching light play across the water. His magic reached outward instinctively, testing the boundaries of his bonds. Daphne in the manor, steady and focused. Fleur somewhere above, probably in the tower room she'd claimed for herself. Both of them present, both of them connected to him in ways he still didn't fully understand. And something else, something at the edge of his awareness that felt like watching. He was on his feet instantly, wand drawn. Who's there? Nothing. The gardens were empty, the wards undisturbed. But the feeling persisted. A presence, familiar somehow, lurking just beyond perception. Then he felt it. A tug on a connection he hadn't known existed. Something dark and cold and hungry, reaching for him through the scar. Harry's hand flew to his forehead as pain lanced through his skull. Not like the visions, not like Voldemort's emotions bleeding through. This was different. This was his magic, his bond-forming ability, recognizing something it had been connected to for years without him knowing. The Horcrux, the piece of Voldemort's soul that had lived in his head since he was 15 months old. His magic had been surviving on connections all along. Fleur had said. Minor bonds to places and objects and people. But the oldest connection, the most constant one. No. Harry forced the realization down, built walls around it, refused to examine it too closely. No, that's not, I won't. But his magic didn't care about his denial. Kept reaching, kept recognizing, kept trying to strengthen a bond that should never have existed. Harry dropped to his knees, fighting for control. Through his bonds with Daphne and Fleur, he felt their alarm, felt them moving toward him. He sent a pulse of reassurance he didn't feel. Stay back, I'm handling it, and focused everything he had on the thing in his head. The Horcrux was a connection, a corrupted, parasitic, horrifying connection, but a connection nonetheless. His magic had been using it to survive, drawing on Voldemort's power without either of them realizing. And now that Harry understood what he was, now that he was consciously forming bonds and growing stronger, the Horcrux was responding. Trying to become more. Trying to become a true soul bond instead of just an accidental link. Get out. Harry's voice was a snarl. Get out. He threw everything he had at the connection. Not trying to sever it, he didn't know if that was possible, but trying to contain it. To wall it off from the rest of his magical network. To keep it isolated, quarantined, unable to spread its corruption to his real bonds. The Horcrux fought back. Voldemort's soul fragment was weak, damaged by years of being unintentionally drained by Harry's survival needs. But it was still a piece of the most powerful dark wizard of the age. It writhed against his containment, looking for cracks, looking for ways through. Harry held firm. Minutes passed. Hours, maybe. He lost track of time in the struggle. But eventually, finally, the Horcrux subsided. Not destroyed, not removed, but dormant, walled off behind barriers of Harry's own making, unable to reach the bonds he'd formed consciously. He opened his eyes to find Daphne and Fleur kneeling beside him, their faces tight with worry. "Harry." Fleur's voice was shaking. "What happened?" "We felt something terrible, something dark. The scar." Harry touched his forehead. His fingers came away bloody. "There's something in me. Has been since I was a baby. A piece of Voldemort." Daphne went pale. "A Horcrux. You're a Horcrux. You know about those?" "My family knows about everything dark wizards have ever done to extend their lives. It's part of how we've stayed neutral for so long. We know too much to be safe to kill." Her voice was clinical, but her hands were trembling. "Harry, if there's a Horcrux in you, I contained it. For now." He stood shakily, accepting Fleur's support. "My magic's been using it to survive, apparently. The connection's been there so long it became part of how I function. But I've walled it off from the new bonds. It can't touch what we have." "You're certain?" "As certain as I can be." He met their eyes. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. If I'd realized what was in me before we bonded." "You would have what?" Fleur cut him off. "Died alone on your bathroom floor? Lets this zing consume you?" She gripped his arm fiercely. "We knew you had darkness in you, Harry. Everyone touched by Voldemort does. This does not change what we chose." "She's right." Daphne's voice was steadier now. "This is a problem we need to solve, not a reason to fall apart. Can the Horcrux be removed? I don't know. The only method I know of is death. Then we find another method." Fleur's jaw was set. "There must be research, old rituals, something." "The Delacour archives," Daphne said immediately. "Vila Magic deals with soul bonds extensively. If anyone has documentation on separating soul fragments, I can write to my grandmother. She is the keeper of our oldest texts." Fleur's expression was thoughtful. "But she will want something in return. They Delacours do not share their knowledge freely." "What would she want?" "Probably you." Fleur's smile was wry. "They bondformer saved her granddaughter. She will want to meet you, assess you, decide if you are worthy of her assistance. Then we meet her." Harry straightened, pushing down the lingering fear. "After we bring Tonks in. After we're stronger. But we make it happen." They walked back to the manor together, Harry flanked by the two women who'd chosen to tie their lives to his. The Horcrux pulsed weakly at the back of his mind, contained but not gone, a constant reminder of everything he still had to overcome. But for the first time since he'd learned what he was, the darkness didn't feel like a death sentence. It felt like another problem to solve, another enemy to defeat, and Harry had never been very good at staying defeated. Tonks arrived that evening. She came through the wards hesitantly, clearly uncomfortable with how easily the ancient protections accepted her. Harry met her at the gate, watching her take in the manor's imposing facade. "Nice place." Her voice was artificially casual. Very secret fortress of the resistance vibes. "It's home." Harry led her inside. For now, anyway. The others were waiting in what they'd started calling the war room, a former study that Daphne had converted into a combination library, planning space, and training area. Maps covered one wall, marked with known not operations. Books on magical bonds and combat techniques filled hastily conjured shelves. A large table dominated the center, currently spread with Daphne's research notes. "Cozy," Tonks said, scanning the room with professional interest. "You've been busy. We have a lot to catch up on." Daphne didn't rise from her seat. "Your information checked out. That earns you a conversation, not trust." "Fair enough." Tonks dropped into an empty chair, her posture deliberately relaxed. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Start with how you discovered Knot's existence." Tonks talked for nearly an hour. About the case that had first raised her suspicions, a series of disappearances that the ministry kept closing without investigation. About the patterns she'd noticed, the connections she'd drawn, the colleagues who'd warned her to stop asking questions. "The breaking point was when I found evidence that Knot had people inside the Aura department itself," she said. "My own colleagues, people I'd trained with, feeding information to an organization that was kidnapping and experimenting on magical beings. I couldn't just ignore that." "Why not go to Dumbledore?" Harry asked. "I thought about it, but Dumbledore's approach is always let me handle this. Trust my greater plan. And I'm tired of sitting on the sidelines while other people decide what's worth fighting for." Tonks met his eyes. "You're actually doing something, building something. That matters to me. And your abilities? You said they were unusual even for a metamorphmagus." Tonks shifted. Literally shifted, her features flowing into an exact of Harry's face before settling back to her own. "Most metamorphs can change appearance. Color, features, that sort of thing. I can change everything. Bone structure, muscle mass, internal organs if I push hard enough. Complete transformation." "That is remarkable," Fleur said. "It's useful. It's also exhausting, and it comes with some uncomfortable side effects." Tonks's expression flickered. "When you can be anyone, it's easy to forget who you're supposed to be. I've spent my whole life trying to figure out what Tonks actually looks like when nobody's watching. And you think bonding with Harry would help with that?" Daphne's tone was skeptical. "I think being connected to someone, really connected, not just surface level, might help me feel real in a way I never have." Tonks shrugged. "Or it might be wishful thinking. I'm willing to find out." Harry felt his magic stirring again, reaching toward Tonks the way it had at the pub. She was compatible, he could sense that much. But compatibility wasn't the same as trust, and trust wasn't the same as the emotional connection that real bonds required. "We can't force this," he said. "Even if we wanted to, the bonds don't work that way. I'm not asking you to force anything. I'm asking for a chance." Tonks leaned forward. "Let me work with you, fight alongside you. And if something develops naturally, great. If it doesn't, well, you still get a trained Auror who knows the ministry inside and out. Win-win." The logic was sound. Harry looked at Daphne and Fleur, feeling their opinions through the bonds. Cautious acceptance from Daphne, sympathy mixed with wariness from Fleur. "All right," he said. "You're in. But you follow our rules, you submit to ward-level monitoring until we're sure you can be trusted, and you understand that any betrayal will be dealt with permanently." Tonks's grin was sharp. "Wouldn't have it any other way." The attack came 3 nights later. Harry was asleep when the wards screamed. Not a probe, not a test. A full assault, multiple attackers hitting the boundary simultaneously with magic designed to shatter ancient protections. He was dressed and armed in 30 seconds, joining the others in the entrance hall. Tonks had already shifted into combat form. Harder edges, denser muscle, eyes that glowed faintly with enhanced vision. 20 at least, she reported. Coordinated strike pattern. Professional. Knots people. Daphne had her wand out, running tactical calculations. Has to be. Harry reached through his bonds, drawing power. They found us. Ow. Fleur's flames were already manifesting, blue fire wreathing her hands. Doesn't matter right now. We need to. The wards shattered. Harry felt it like a physical blow, generations of greengrass magic collapsing under sustained assault. And then they were through, black-robed figures pouring through the gap, spells flying. Together! Harry's voice cut through the chaos. Through the bonds, he pulled Daphne and Fleur into synchronization, their magic flowing together into a combined strike that blasted the first wave of attackers off their feet. But more kept coming. Tonks moved like water, her form shifting constantly. Dodging here, striking there, never quite where the enemy expected. Daphne's ice magic froze attackers in their tracks, while Fleur's fire cut through the darkness. Harry anchored them all, his bond-enhanced power amplifying everything they did. It wasn't enough. "There's too many," Tonks shouted, taking a glancing hit that sent her sprawling. Harry saw the gray-robed figure from before, Knott's lieutenant, moving through the battle untouched. Their eyes met, and the man smiled. "Impressive," he called out, "but ultimately pointless. The architect's offer stands, Mr. Potter. Join us willingly, or we take you by force. Go to hell. Suit yourself." The man raised his hand. The attackers all moved at once, not attacking but forming a pattern. A ritual circle, Harry realized with horror. They were trying to contain them, capture them, probably transport them somewhere they couldn't escape. Through the bond, he felt Tonks's desperation, Daphne's fear, Fleur's rage. They were going to lose, going to be taken, going to end up wherever the captured villa had been taken. Unless Harry reached deep into himself, past his constructed bonds, past his careful control, into the power he'd been trying to ignore since he discovered it. The Horcrux. It was dark, corrupted, everything he'd walled off and contained. But it was also power, Voldemort's power, linked to Harry whether he wanted it or not. He'd contained it to prevent it from corrupting his bonds. But what if he didn't contain it? What if he used it? No. The cost would be, the ritual circle flared to life, beginning to close around them. Harry made a choice. He opened the walls. Dark magic flooded through him, cold, hungry, ancient. It mixed with his own power, amplified by his bonds, and erupted outward in a wave that shattered the ritual circle and threw every attacker within 50 meters into the air. The gray-robed lieutenant slammed into a tree hard enough to crack the trunk. His companions weren't as lucky. Several hit the ground and didn't get up. Harry stood in the center of the devastation, dark power crackling around him, feeling more alive than he ever had. And then feeling nothing at all as unconsciousness claimed him. He woke to arguing. Completely irresponsible. He could have killed himself. He saved us. That is what matters. That's not the point. Using the Horcrux's power could corrupt everything we've built. If it gets into the bonds. It didn't. Tonks's voice, calm and certain. I can feel the difference. Whatever he did, it was controlled. Dangerous as hell, but controlled. Harry opened his eyes. He was in his room, in his bed. Morning light streamed through the windows, and 3 women were having a heated debate at his bedside. How long? His voice came out hoarse. 12 hours. Daphne's expression was a mixture of relief and fury. What were you thinking? I was thinking we were about to lose. Harry sat up slowly, taking stock. His magic felt different, stronger, but also darker, like a stain had spread through it. Did it work? Zay attackers are gone. Most are dead. Fleur's voice was flat. Zay ones, survived, retreated. And the lieutenant? The gray-robed one. Escaped, but injured. Tonks moved closer. Harry, what did you do? I used the Horcrux. He saw their expressions shift. Fear on Daphne. Concern on Fleur. Something harder to read on Tonks. I know it was risky, but they had us. The ritual would have captured everyone. The Horcrux is a piece of Voldemort's soul, Daphne said sharply. Using its power is dangerous. I know, but it's also mine. Harry met her eyes. I've been carrying it since I was a baby. This shaped my magic, kept me alive when I should have died. Pretending it doesn't exist won't make it go away. So what? You're just going to use dark magic whenever it's convenient? I'm going to use every weapon I have to protect the people I care about. His voice was quiet but firm. Including weapons I don't like. Including parts of myself I'd rather not have. Silence fell over the room. Then Fleur moved to his side, taking his hand. Ari is right. We cannot afford to ignore any advantage. But, she met his eyes seriously. We must be careful. This power could consume you if you let it. I know. That's why I need you. He looked at all three of them. The bonds help me stay me. Human. When I channel the Horcrux, I can feel you anchoring me. Without that, you become what the Horcrux wants you to become. Daphne finished. Wonderful. So the solution to you having a piece of Voldemort's soul is more connections. Basically, she stared at him for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. A short, sharp sound. You know, when I signed up to save your life, I wasn't expecting quite this much drama. Where's the fun in normal? Normal sounds lovely, actually, but she was almost smiling. Fine, we adapt. We figure out how to help you use this power safely. And in the meantime, we need to move, Tonks interrupted. They know where we are now. This location is burned. She's right. Harry swung his legs out of bed. We need a new base, somewhere even harder to find. I might have an idea. Daphne's expression was thoughtful. There's a place, not in Britain, not exactly in the normal world either. My family has records of it, but we've never been able to find it. What place? It's called the Sanctuary, a refuge built centuries ago for magical beings who needed protection. It exists in a pocket dimension, accessible only through specific anchors. She paused. The records suggest that soul bonds were used to create it, and that finding it requires someone with the ability to form those bonds. Harry felt a spark of hope. You think I could find it? I think you're probably the only person alive who could. Where do we start looking? The Delacour archives. Daphne smiled grimly. Looks like we're meeting Fleur's grandmother sooner than expected. Harry looked at his three companions. Daphne with her cold determination, Fleur with her fierce loyalty, Tonks with her newfound purpose. They'd fought together, nearly died together, and now they were going to venture into unknown magical territory together. His magic hummed through the bonds, stronger than before, touched by darkness but anchored by connection. All right, he said, let's find us a sanctuary. They left the manor that night. Daphne set the building to burn behind them. Magical fire that would consume everything, leave no evidence, give Knott's people nothing to analyze. It felt like a death, watching the old estate crumble, but it also felt like a beginning. The Delacour estate was in southern France, hidden in the mountains above Nice. They operate in stages, crossing international boundaries through back channels Fleur knew from her childhood. By dawn, they stood at the gates of a chateau that seemed to be made entirely of white stone and morning mist. My grandmother knows we are coming, Fleur said. She is not what you might expect. Meaning she is very old, very powerful, and very good at seeing rough pretense. Fleur's smile was wry. Do not try to be anything other than what you are, Ari. She will know. The gates opened without them touching anything. Inside, the chateau was beautiful in that effortless French way, all elegant lines and carefully curated antiquity. A house elf unlike any Harry had seen before led them through corridors lined with portraits that watched them pass with knowing eyes. The library was 3 stories tall, stuffed with books and scrolls and artifacts that practically vibrated with contained power. And in its center, seated in a chair that looked like a throne, waited an ancient Vila woman whose eyes burned like blue flames. So, she said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries, you are Z10, as bonded my granddaughter. Yes, ma'am. Harry stepped forward, leaving the others behind. And I need your help. Of course you do. Her smile showed teeth. The question is, what are you willing to give for it? Harry thought about everything he'd learned since his magic had started killing him. about bonds and connections and the power that came from genuine trust. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want Z truth." She rose from her throne, and despite her apparent age, she moved like a predator. "I want to know what you really are, Harry Potter. Not Z stories, not Z legends. Z truth of your magic, your bonds, your Horcrux." Harry felt Daphne and Fleur tense behind him. But the old woman already knew. He could see it in her eyes. She was testing him. So he told her. Everything. The dying magic, the bonds, the Horcrux, the fight at the manor. His fears and his hopes and his desperate plan to build something that could stand against the darkness. When he finished, the ancient Vila studied him for a long moment. Then she laughed. A sound like wind chimes and crackling fire. "You are either Z bravest wizard I have met in 200 years, she said. Or Z most foolish. I've been told there's not much difference." Indeed. She turned back to her throne, waving her hand. Behind her, a section of the library shifted, revealing a hidden alcove containing a single, ancient tome. "Z sanctuary you seek is real. My ancestors helped create it, before Z last great war against darkness. But finding it will require more than just your power." "What else?" "A circle of bonded souls. At least 5, connected to each Ozer's refu." Her eyes gleamed. "You have too. You need 3 more before Z paths will open. 3 more bonds." Harry thought about Tonks, who was already compatible but not yet connected. "How do I find people who—" "You do not find them." The old woman cut him off. "They find you. That is how it has always worked. They bondformers call, and those are meant to answer. Do. That's not very helpful. It is not meant to be helpful. It is meant to be true." She picked up the ancient tome and held it out. "This contains everything my family knows about Z Sanctuary. Take it, study it, and when you have your circle, come back." "No. When you have your circle, you will not need to come back. Z Sanctuary will find you." Her expression softened slightly. "Take care of my granddaughter, Harry Potter. She has chosen well, I think." "I intend to." They left the chateau with more questions than answers, but also with something precious. Direction. A goal. A path forward. 3 more bonds. 3 more people who would choose to link their magic and their lives to Harry's desperate cause. The first step was obvious. "Tonks," Harry said as they walked through the pre-dawn mist. "That conversation we kept putting off?" She looked at him, her hair shifting from brown to her natural pink. "Yeah. I think it's time to stop putting it off." Her grin was sharp and bright. Finally, Harry reached for his magic and his magic reached back. The bond with Tonks formed differently than the others. With Daphne, it had been desperate survival. With Fleur, it had been deliberate choice. With Tonks, it was something in between, a mutual recognition that had been building since their first meeting finally allowed to bloom. Her magic was chaos. That was the only way to describe it. Fluid, ever-changing, refusing to settle into any fixed form. When it met Harry's, there was a moment of dissonance, like 2 instruments trying to find the same key. Then Tonks laughed, her form flickering through a dozen appearances in as many seconds, and the chaos found its anchor. Harry felt her snap into place in his magical network. Wild where Daphne was controlled, fierce where Fleur was passionate. But somehow completing a pattern he hadn't known was incomplete. And through the new bond, he felt Tonks's reaction. Wonder and relief and something that felt like finally. "Oh," she breathed, her form settling back into something like her normal appearance. "So that's what it's supposed to feel like." "What?" "Being real." She looked at her hands like she'd never seen them before. "I can feel all of you, you Daphne, Fleur. And through you, I can feel myself. The me that doesn't change." "Zay core," Fleur said softly. "Every Vila knows this feeling. Zay parts of ourselves that remain constant no matter what form we take." "I've never had that before." Tonks's voice was thick. "I've always been whatever the situation needed, whatever people wanted to see. But now you have an anchor," Daphne finished. Welcome to the circle, Tonks. Try not to make me regret it. Wouldn't dream of it. But Tonks's grin was watery, her tough facade cracking around genuine emotion. 3 bonds. 2 more to go. Harry looked at the lightning sky, feeling his expanded network of connections humming with shared power and purpose. The sanctuary requires 5, he said. We need to find 2 more. Zay grandmother said Zay would find you, Fleur pointed out. Then let's make ourselves easy to find. Harry thought about everything they'd learned, everything they faced. We go active. Stop hiding, start hunting. Make enough noise that anyone looking for us, allies or enemies, knows exactly where we are. Zat is incredibly dangerous. So is hiding while not builds his forces and captured Vila Suffer in his labs. Harry's jaw set. I'm tired of reacting. It's time to take the fight to them. Daphne studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she smiled. A real smile, not the calculated masks she usually wore. Finally, she said, I was wondering when the Gryffindor would show up. He was always here. He just needed the right people watching his back. They apparat back to Britain as the sun rose over France, for bonded souls ready to go to war. Behind them, the ancient Vila watched from her chateau window, blue eyes bright with something that might have been hope. Brave or foolish, she murmured to herself. I suppose we will find out. Chapter 3. The Watcher Su Li had been invisible her entire life. Not literally, though she could manage that trick when she wanted to. Invisible in the way that mattered more. Overlooked, underestimated, forgotten 5 minutes after walking out of a room. The quiet Ravenclaw girl who got perfect marks but never raised her hand. The half-blood nobody quite knew what to do with. Too Chinese for the British purebloods, too magical for her Muggle relatives. She'd made peace with it years ago. Invisibility had advantages. Nobody expected anything from someone they couldn't see. But she saw everything. That's how she knew something was wrong at Hogwarts 3 weeks before term started. Professor Vector had been acting strange since June, nervous glances, hushed conversations with people who shouldn't have been on school grounds, late-night visits to the arithmancy classroom that had nothing to do with lesson preparation. Su Li had noticed because noticing things was what she did. She'd filed it away as mildly interesting, possibly useful information to examine later. Then the attack started. Not at Hogwarts, not yet. But the Prophet reported disappearances. Villa in France. Unusual magical signatures vanishing across Europe. And Professor Vector's nervous glances became something darker. Something satisfied. Su Li started watching more carefully. She was in the library, invisible naturally, when she overheard Vector talking to a man who shouldn't have existed. The Potter boy escaped. Vector was saying, her voice tight with frustration. Twice now. The architect is displeased. The architect's displeasure is not my concern. The man's voice was cultured, cold. My concern is results. You assured us you could track his magical signature through the school's wards. I can. When he's at Hogwarts. But he hasn't returned. And the monitoring spells I placed on his friends have detected nothing useful. Then place better spells. Or find another approach. The man leaned forward, and Su Li caught a glimpse of his face. Sharp features, gray eyes, an expression of absolute control. Potter is building something. A network of bonded individuals that could threaten everything we've constructed. The architect wants him contained before that network grows too large. What about Dumbledore? He's been asking questions. Dumbledore is being managed. Focus on your task. They left separately. Su Li stayed invisible for another hour, mind racing. Harry Potter. Soul bonds. Someone called the architect who wanted him captured. She should report this to someone. Dumbledore, maybe, except apparently he was being managed. The Oars? But Vector had mentioned people inside the ministry. Her parents? They'd tell her to keep her head down, stay safe, don't get involved. Su Li had been keeping her head down her entire life. And people were disappearing. She made a decision. Finding Harry Potter turned out to be surprisingly easy. Not because he was careless, quite the opposite. But Su Li had been studying ritual magic since she was 13. teaching herself from books the Hogwarts library kept in the sections nobody visited. She knew things about magical signatures and tracking that most adult wizards had never considered. And Harry Potter's signature was impossible to miss. Now that she knew what to look for, it blazed across her detection spells like a bonfire in darkness. Not one signature but multiple, woven together in patterns she'd only read about in theoretical texts. Soul bonds. Real ones. The kind that hadn't been reliably formed in centuries. She found them in Scotland, at a safe house that had clearly been hastily established after their previous location was compromised. The wards were impressive, layered, vicious, designed to kill first and ask questions never. But Sully hadn't survived being invisible by being careless. She sent a message instead. Harry stared at the paper crane that had somehow navigated their wards, landed on the breakfast table, and unfolded itself to reveal neat, precise handwriting. I know who's hunting you. I know what they want. I know things about soul bonds that might help you survive. And I know that Professor Vector is a spy reporting your friend's activities to an organization called the Architects. I also know that you need more bonds to find the sanctuary. I've read the texts. I understand the theory. And I'm willing to help. If you're willing to listen to someone who's spent her life being overlooked, meet me at the coordinates below. Come alone or don't come at all. I'll know if you bring others. SL, it's obviously a trap, Daphne said flatly. Obviously, Tonks agreed. The bit about coming alone? Classic ambush setup. And yet, Fleur was studying the crane with interest. How did this get zruff our wards? Elpt designs them. Zay should Ave destroyed any Zing trying to enter without permission. Ritual magic. Daphne picked up the crane, examining its folds. Incredibly precise ritual magic. The kind that finds loopholes in ward structures rather than breaking through them. So whoever sent this is skilled, Harry said. Skilled enough to bypass defenses designed by a Greengrass and a Vila. Which makes them dangerous. Or useful. Harry reached for the crane, turning it over in his hands. Through his bonds, he could feel the others' wariness. Their protective instincts screaming that this was a bad idea. But he could also feel something else. A resonance, faint but present, coming from the paper itself. Whoever had made this had left a trace of their magical signature. Intentionally, he suspected. An offering of trust. And that signature felt compatible. I'm going, he said. Like hell you are. Tonks's hair shifted to angry red. If you think we're letting you walk into an obvious trap, I'm not asking permission. Harry's voice was quiet but firm. This person knows about the bonds, knows about the sanctuary, and they're reaching out instead of selling that information to Not. Or they are working for Not and this is their way of capturing you. Maybe, but they also warned us about Vector. Harry looked at Daphne. That matches what we learned from Tonks's intelligence. If this is a trap, it's an elaborate one that's giving us real information. Real information that could be designed to make you trust them. Everything's a risk. Harry stood, pocketing the crane. I'm going. You can follow at a distance if you want. The letter said I'd know if I brought others, but it didn't say you couldn't be nearby. Harry, Fleur started. I have to do this. He met her eyes, letting her feel his certainty through the bond. The grandmother said the people I need would find me. This feels like that. Your feelings are not a reliable guide to strategy. No. But they're what I've got. He smiled slightly. Trust me. The question hung in the air. Through the bonds, he felt their responses. Frustration, fear, and underneath it all, a grudging faith in his instincts that had been building since the beginning. Fine, Daphne said finally. But we're following. And if anything looks wrong, we're extracting you whether you like it or not. I'd expect nothing less. The coordinates led to an abandoned greenhouse on the outskirts of Edinburgh. Harry approached carefully, wand ready, magical senses extended. The place looked like it hadn't been used in decades. Glass panels cracked and missing, plants long dead, structure slowly collapsing under its own weight. But inside, someone was waiting. She was small, shorter than Daphne, with straight black hair and features that spoke of Chinese heritage. Hogwarts robes, Ravenclaw colors, though Harry couldn't place her face from any of his classes. "You came alone," she said. Her voice was calm, analytical. "Mostly. You're bonded are 200 meters out, watching through enhanced vision spells. Clever compromise. You said you'd know. I said it to see if you'd respect the request while finding a workaround. You did." She almost smiled. "That tells me something about how you think." "And how's that?" "You value your people's input but make your own decisions. You follow the spirit of agreements rather than the letter. You take calculated risks but aren't reckless about them." She tilted her head. "I've been studying you since second year Harry Potter. You're more interesting than most people realize." "You've been studying me." "I study everyone. It's what I do." She stepped closer, and Harry felt his magic stir, reaching toward her the way it had reached toward Tonks, toward Fleur, toward Daphne. "My name is Sully. I'm a sixth-year Ravenclaw. I've spent the last 3 years teaching myself ritual magic from texts most people don't know exist. And I know things about your condition that could help you survive." "My condition?" "Your core can't sustain itself without external bonds. You need connections to grow, to stabilize, to eventually become strong enough to face whatever's coming." Sully's eyes were steady. "I've read the theoretical literature. Your type of magical structure was thought to be extinct. The last documented case was in the 1400s. But here you are. How do you know all this?" "Because I've been looking for answers to a different question and kept finding pieces of yours instead." She paused. "I have a gift, Harry. I can see magical patterns that other people miss. Connections, structures, the underlying architecture of how magic works. It's why I'm good at ritual work. I can visualize the entire system while others are still figuring out individual components. And you think this gift would be useful to me? I think we could be useful to each other." Sully met his eyes directly. "You need people who understand what you are. I need people who won't overlook me. And we both need to stop whoever's hunting you before they hurt anyone else." Harry was quiet for a moment, processing. Through the bonds, he felt Daphne's suspicion, Fleur's curiosity, Tonks's wary interest. They were all listening, he knew, through magical enhancements that let them hear what was happening. "The message mentioned Vector," he said finally. "What do you know?" "I know she's been reporting to someone called the Architect for at least 2 years. I know she placed monitoring spells on students with unusual magical signatures, including you, including several Muggleborns with high potential. I know she meets with a gray-robed man every few weeks to deliver intelligence." Sully's voice was matter-of-fact. "I know all of this because I made myself invisible and watched. Why didn't you tell anyone?" "Who would I tell?" "Dumbledore, who apparently is being managed by these people. The Aurors, who have spies inside their department. My parents, who would tell me to stay out of it." She shrugged. "I gathered information. I waited for an opportunity to use it. Then I heard about what happened at the manor. Nott's attack on someone building soul bonds, and I realized the opportunity was you. You want to join us. I want to matter." For the first time, emotion cracked through Sully's analytical facade. "I've spent my entire life being invisible, being useful in ways nobody notices, being smart in ways nobody cares about. I want to be part of something real, something that fights back instead of just watching." Harry felt his magic surging toward her. Recognition, compatibility, the same resonance he'd felt with each of his bonded. But he forced himself to hold back. "I believe you," he said slowly. "But I can't form a bond with you just because it would be tactically useful. That's not how this works." "I know. The bonds require genuine emotional connection." Sully nodded. "I'm not asking you to bond with me today. I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove I'm worth trusting. Let me show you what I can do. Let me help you understand your own abilities better. And if something develops naturally, then we go from there." "Exactly." Harry considered. The smart move was probably to refuse. They had 3 bonds already. They were making progress. Adding another unknown was risky. But Sully had information they needed. Skills they didn't have. And more than that, she had something he recognized. Loneliness. The kind that came from being different, from being overlooked, from spending your whole life on the outside looking in. Okay, he said. You're in. Provisionally. Su Li's composure cracked into something like relief. Thank you. You won't regret this. I hope not. Harry turned toward where his bonded were hiding. You can come out now. She knows you're there anyway. The integration went smoother than expected. Su Li fit into their group like a puzzle piece they hadn't known was missing. Within hours, she was deep in discussion with Daphne about ward structures, with Fleur about Vila magical theory, with Tonks about ministry protocols and weaknesses. And she delivered on her promises. Your bonds aren't just connections, she explained that evening, covering a blackboard with diagrams and equations that made Harry's head spin. They're a network. Each person you bond with doesn't just add to your power. They multiply it through their interactions with each other. Meaning 3 bonds isn't 3 times as strong as 1 bond. It's more like 9 times. The connections between your bonded create secondary channels that amplify everything. She drew more lines. With 4 bonds, you'd be looking at something like 16 times base power. With 5, 25. Daphne finished, her eyes widening. Geometric progression. That's why the sanctuary requires 5. It's not an arbitrary number. It's the minimum to generate enough power to access a pocket dimension. Exactly. Su Li looked satisfied. And it explains why Not wants Harry so badly. If he could control someone with bond-forming abilities, he could create an army of magically linked soldiers. Each new recruit would make the whole network exponentially stronger. That is terrifying, Fleur said quietly. It's also why Harry can never be allowed to fall into his hands. Su Li's voice was firm. The potential for abuse is enormous. In the wrong hands, this ability could reshape the magical world. Harry absorbed this, feeling the weight of it settle on his shoulders. So I'm not just a weapon. I'm a weapon of mass destruction. You're a person with a rare gift that could be used for good or evil. Su Li met his eyes. The difference is choice. You're choosing to build genuine connections, not forced ones. You're choosing to bond with people who want to be bonded. That matters. Does it? If the end result is still enormous power. Of course it matters. Daphne's voice was sharp. Power without consent is tyranny. Power freely given and shared is something else. Something the magical world hasn't seen in centuries. Zay Vila Ave stories about this, Fleur added. Zay old networks before Zay were broken. Zay were not tyrannies. Zay were families. Extended beyond blood. Connected by choice. And we're rebuilding that, Tonks said slowly. Not because we want power, but because we need each other. That's different. Harry looked at his bonded. Daphne with her ice and determination. Fleur with her fire and fierce loyalty. Tonks with her chaos and newfound stability. All of them choosing to be here. Choosing to tie their magic and their lives to his. Su Li, he said quietly. The diagrams you've been drawing. The patterns. Can you see the bonds directly? Yes, I've been able to since I arrived. Her voice was careful. Your network is beautiful, actually. 3 primary connections all flowing through you, but also connecting to each other. And there's something else. A dark thread, contained but present. The Horcrux. You can see that too? I can see magical structures. That includes corrupted ones. She hesitated. I might be able to help. With the containment, ritual magic could reinforce the barriers you've built. Make them more permanent. You'd do that. I'd try. Su Li's expression was earnest. I told you, I want to help. I want to be useful. And this is something I can actually do. Harry felt the moment crystallize. Trust forming, connection building. His magic reached for Su Li again, and this time he didn't hold it back entirely. She gasped as she felt it touch her, her eyes going wide. Oh, she breathed. That's what it feels like. Being seen. Yeah. Harry extended his hand. Welcome to the family. Su Li. Properly this time. She took his hand, and the bond formed. It was different from the others, quieter, more intellectual, a meeting of minds rather than hearts. But it was no less real, no less powerful. Su Li's analytical nature wove into the network, adding clarity and structure to the raw power already present. For bonds, one more to find. And somewhere out there, the architect was still hunting them. They hit their first major target 3 days later. Su Li had provided detailed intelligence on Vector's schedule. Her meeting points, the identity of the gray-robed man she reported to. His name was Marcus Webb, and he was Arcturus Knott's primary lieutenant, the same man who'd led both attacks on Harry. He operates out of a safe house in London, Su Li explained, pointing to a map she'd created from scraps of overheard conversation. It's warded, but the protections are standardized ministry designs. I can get us through. You're sure about this? Harry asked. We've been playing defense so far. Going on offense changes things. Offense is how we find the captured villa, Fleur said firmly. Offense is how we stop Knott before he comes for us again. And offense is how we show people we're not just victims waiting to be hunted, Daphne added. Every successful strike makes it harder for Knott to recruit, harder for him to operate openly. Not to mention we might actually learn something useful, Tonks put in. Intel about his organization, locations of other bases, maybe even where he's keeping the prisoners. Harry looked at Su Li. What do you think? I think it's risky but necessary. Her voice was calm. And I think we're ready. For bonds means we're operating at 16 times normal power. We could take on most threats. Then we do it. Harry straightened. Tonight, we hit Webb's safe house, extract whatever intelligence we can find, and to Knott that his people aren't untouchable. The planning took hours. Su Li designed the ward-breaking ritual. Daphne provided tactical analysis. Fleur and Tonks mapped escape routes and contingencies. Harry coordinated everything, feeling his bonded working together like instruments in an orchestra. This was what the bonds were for, not just power synergy. Every person contributing their strengths, their weaknesses covered by others. When night fell, they were ready. Webb's safe house was a converted warehouse in the industrial part of London, surrounded by Muggle businesses that provided cover and plausible deniability. The wards were exactly where Su Li said they'd be, ministry standard, strong but predictable. She dismantled them in under 3 minutes. We're in, she whispered. I'm detecting 5 magical signatures inside. Webb and 4 others. Formation Beta, Harry murmured through the bond link they'd established. Tonks takes point, Fleur and I flank. Daphne and Su Li provide ranged support. They moved through the warehouse like ghosts. Tonks's metamorph abilities let her blend with shadows in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Fleur's Vila senses detected magical threats before they became dangerous. Daphne's precision hexes neutralized 2 guards without them ever knowing what hit them. Webb was in a central office, surrounded by documents and magical artifacts that practically screamed evidence of crimes. Mr. Potter. He didn't seem surprised when they burst through his door. I was wondering when you'd grow bold enough to strike back. You're not fighting. What would be the point? I'm clearly outmatched. Webb spread his hands. I'm a coordinator, not a combatant. My value to the architect is my mind, not my wand. Then your mind will answer our questions, Fleur said, blue fire flickering at her fingertips. I'm sure it will. Torture tends to be persuasive. Webb's smile was thin. But I wonder, what will you actually learn? I know very little that would help you. The architect compartmentalizes his operations precisely to prevent situations like this. You know where the captured villa are being held, Harry said. I know of 3 facilities. There are at least 7 more I've never seen. Webb shrugged. I can give you what I know, but it won't be enough. It will never be enough. The architect has been building this organization for 15 years. You've been playing at resistance for barely a month. Then we will tear it down piece by piece, Fleur snarled. Perhaps. Or perhaps you'll make a mistake, and he'll capture you, and everything you've built will become his. Webb's eyes found Harry. That's what he wants, you know? Not to kill you, to use you. Your ability to form bonds is unprecedented. In his hands, it could reshape magical society entirely. That's never going to happen. Famous last words. Webb glanced at the door. Your time is running short, by the way. Silent alarms were triggered when you breached the wards. Reinforcements will be here in approximately 4 minutes. Damn. Harry reached through the bonds, felt his people responding to the threat. Grab everything you can, he ordered. Documents, artifacts, anything that looks important. They worked fast, stuffing evidence into expanded bags while Webb watched with amusement. Daphne found a locked drawer that required 3 simultaneous unlocking spells to open. Inside was a folder marked Facility Locations that made Fleur's eyes light up with desperate hope. Time, Tonks called. We need to go. What about him? Sully gestured at Webb. Harry considered. Killing him would be tactically sound, eliminate an enemy asset, prevent him from reporting what he'd seen. But looking at the man's calm acceptance, Harry realized that's exactly what Webb expected. We leave him. Harry met Webb's surprised gaze. Tell the architect that we're coming for him. Tell him his people aren't safe anywhere. And tell him that for every villa he's taken, we're going to burn something he values to the ground. Mercy. Webb's voice was skeptical. From the Golden Boy? Not mercy. Strategy. Harry smiled coldly. You're more useful to us alive. Every message you deliver makes the architect react, and every reaction gives us more information. So run back to your master, tell him what you saw, and enjoy looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life. They operated out as the first reinforcements arrived. The folder contained locations for 3 detention facilities in Britain and 1 in northern Germany. The German facility is the largest, Fleur said, poring over the documents they'd stolen. 47 prisoners, including, her voice caught, including Vila taken in Z first raids. My cousin could be Zir. Then we hit that one first. It's heavily defended, Sully warned. Multiple ward layers, automated combat constructs, probably a small army of guards. This isn't like Webb's safe house. So we prepare better. Harry looked at his bonded. How long to plan a proper assault? A week minimum, Daphne said. We need reconnaissance, ward analysis, escape routes that account for apparition blocks. Rushing this would get people killed. Then we take the week. Harry squeezed Fleur's hand. We're going to get them out. All of them. You promise. I promise. It was a promise he had no right to make. They were 5 people against an organization that had been building power for decades. The odds were impossible. But Harry had been beating impossible odds since he was 11 years old. He was just getting started. The week of preparation revealed something unexpected. They had allies they hadn't known about. It started with a letter from Dumbledore, not a summons or a demand, but an actual letter. An apology of sorts, and an offer of information about Knott's German operations that had been gathered by Order members. He's trying to manipulate you, Daphne said flatly. Probably. Harry read the letter again. But the information might still be good. Even if it is, accepting his help puts us in his debt. Not if we're careful about what we accept. The second surprise came from Andromeda Tonks, who arrived at their temporary base with a trunk full of healing potions and a warning that the Ministry was preparing a more aggressive search for Harry. They're calling it protective custody, she said, her expression disgusted. Claiming you've been kidnapped, possibly Imperious. It gives them legal cover to capture you, for your own good. Can they actually enforce that? If they find you, Andromeda's smile was sharp. I suggest you continue being hard to find. The third surprise was Tracy Davis. Harry knew her vaguely. Daphne's friend, a Slytherin half-blood who kept her head down and avoided attention. She showed up at their wards at 2 in the morning, battered and bleeding, with a story that made Harry's blood run cold. My family sold me, she said, her voice flat with shock, to Knott, in exchange for business considerations. Your own family? Sully's voice was horrified. My stepfather. He's not. He never. Tracy shook her head. It doesn't matter. I escaped before they could deliver me. Came to the only person I could think of who might help. Her eyes found Daphne. I know we haven't talked much this year. I know I've been distant. But you're the only one who ever treated me like a person instead of a useful tool. Daphne was already moving, pulling Tracy into an embrace. You stupid, brave idiot. Of course we'll help you. Knott's people will be looking for me. Let them look. Harry's voice was cold with rage. Anyone who sells a child to be experimented on deserves everything that's coming to them. Tracy stared at him. You don't even know me. I know Daphne trusts you. I know you risked everything to escape instead of being a victim. And I know what it's like to have family that doesn't deserve the word. He extended his hand. You're safe here. For as long as you need. She took his hand hesitantly. And Harry felt it. The resonance, the compatibility. His magic reaching toward hers the same way it had reached toward the others. 5. She would be the 5th. But not yet. Not when she was traumatized and terrified and barely holding herself together. That had to be her choice, freely made. Come inside, Daphne said gently. We'll get you healed up. And then we'll figure out what comes next. Tracy's information changed everything. Her family had been working with Knott for years. She revealed once she'd recovered enough to talk. They handled logistics, moving prisoners and supplies between facilities, keeping track of which experiments were being conducted where. I wasn't supposed to know, she said. Her voice steady now despite the horror of what she was describing. But I was invisible, just like Sully said about herself. Nobody notices the quiet daughter in the corner. So I listened. I learned. What did you learn? The German facility isn't just for holding prisoners. It's for research. Tracy's jaw tightened. They're trying to extract something from the Vila, magical essence, soul energy, something that can be bottled and transferred. The successful extractions go to Knott himself. The failures. She didn't finish. She didn't have to. How many? Fleur's voice was barely controlled. How many Ave extracted? I don't know exact numbers, but the research has been going on for months. The extraction rate was increasing before I escaped. They'd refined the process, made it more efficient. We're moving up the timeline, Harry said. Forget a week. We hit them in 3 days. That's not enough time. It's going to have to be. His voice left no room for argument. Every day we wait, more people die. We go with what we have. Daphne looked like she wanted to argue. But through the bond, she felt the steel in his resolve. Fine, but we do this smart. No heroics, no improvisation unless absolutely necessary. Agreed. Harry looked at Tracy. Will you help us? Your knowledge of their operations could save lives. Of course. Her eyes were dark with something that might have been vengeance. I want to burn everything my stepfather helped build. Then let's get to work. 3 days of preparation passed in a blur. Sully designed a ward-breaching ritual more complex than anything she'd attempted before. Layered, adaptive, capable of adjusting to whatever defenses they encountered. Daphne drilled everyone on combat tactics until they could fight as a unit without thinking. Tonks reached out to contacts who might provide distraction if needed. Fleur mated, preparing her Vila fire for sustained combat. And Tracy provided details that turned their general plan into something surgical. The main holding cells are in the basement, she explained, pointing to blueprints she'd reconstructed from memory. But the extraction lab is on the upper floors. They keep the subjects there during procedures. If we hit during an extraction cycle, some of the prisoners will already be out of their cells. That's good. It means they'll be accessible. It also means guards will be concentrated around the lab instead of the cells. She traced a path. We split into 2 teams. One hits the lab, frees whoever's there, causes chaos. The other goes straight for the cells during the confusion. Which team takes which target? Sully asked. I'll lead the lab assault, Harry said. Fleur, you're with me. Your fire will be most useful against their constructs. Daphne, Tonks, take the cells. Sully, you're our wild card. Float between teams. Provide support where needed. And me. Tracy's voice was quiet but determined. Harry met her eyes. You've given us everything we need. You don't have to. I'm coming. Her jaw set. This is my fight too. I won't hide while others risk their lives because of information I provided. Then you're with the cell team. You know the facility's layout better than anyone. Tracy nodded, something like gratitude flickering across her face. One more thing, Harry said. If this goes wrong, if we're overwhelmed, I want everyone to retreat. Don't try to save me at the cost of your own lives. That is not how this works, Fleur said sharply. Fleur? No. Her voice was fierce. We are bonded. We are family. We do not leave family behind. She's right, Daphne added. If we're going to do this, we do it together. All the way. Harry looked at his people. 4 bonded, 1 soon to be if things went right. All of them willing to die for this cause. For him. Together then, he said. All the way. The German facility was worse than they'd imagined. They port-keyed in at midnight local time, landing in a forest 3 kilometers from the target. The night was cold, the trees black against a clouded sky, and the air tasted of old magic and recent death. The wards start half a kilometer out, Sully murmured, her eyes distant as she read the magical patterns. Multiple layers, just like we expected. But there's something else. A signature I don't recognize. Hostile, ancient, different from wizard magic. She frowned. It feels like the thing in your scar, Harry, but bigger, more deliberate. The Horcrux in the facility, or something else entirely. Stay alert, Harry said, and stay together until we reach the split point. They moved through the forest like shadows, Sully's ritual working ahead of them to create gaps in the ward structure. It was elegant magic. Instead of breaking the wards, she was convincing them that nothing was passing through. The kind of subtlety that took years to develop. The facility itself was a converted castle, medieval stone walls, reinforced with magical construction. Light glowed in the upper windows, the extraction lab, according to Tracy, while the lower floors were dark. Split point in 30 meters, Daphne whispered. Lab team goes left, cell team goes right. Remember, Harry said, chaos first, extraction second. The more confusion we create, the easier it is to get people out. He felt his bonded stealing themselves through the connections. Fear and determination in equal measure. Love that had grown from desperation into something stronger. Go, he said. They split. Harry and Fleur hit the extraction lab like a hurricane. The guards weren't expecting a frontal assault. Why would they be? This facility had never been attacked. The first wave went down before they could draw wands. Fleur's fire and Harry's bond-enhanced magic cutting through them like they were made of paper. The lab itself was a nightmare. Medical tables arranged in rows, each one holding a vela strapped down with magic-suppressing restraints. Machines that pulsed with stolen power. And in the center, a massive crystalline structure that seemed to be drinking the light from the room. Mon Dieu, Fleur breathed. They are draining them into that thing. Harry saw what she meant. Threads of golden light stretched from the prisoners to the crystal, their essence being pulled from them drop by drop. Most were unconscious, but a few were awake. Their eyes wide with pain, mouths open in silent screams. Get them free, Harry ordered. I'll deal with the machine. He approached the crystal while Fleur started breaking restraints. Up close, it was even more disturbing. Not just a storage device, but something almost alive. Something that pulsed with a hunger he recognized from his own scar. Soul magic. Not had built a device that harvested souls. Harry raised his wand to destroy it, then stopped. The threads connecting it to the prisoners. If he broke the crystal while they were still attached. Figured it out, have you? The voice came from shadows Harry hadn't noticed. A figure stepped forward, an old man, but old in the way ancient trees were old, with power settled deep into his bones. Arcturus not, Harry said. In the flesh. Not smiled, and it was like watching a shark pretend to be friendly. I've been looking forward to meeting you, Mr. Potter. You've caused me considerable inconvenience. You've kidnapped and murdered innocent people. I've advanced magical knowledge beyond anything achieved in centuries. Not's voice was calm, reasonable. These Vila, their essence fuels discoveries that will reshape our world. A small sacrifice for an enormous gain. They're people, not fuel. They're resources, as are you. Not raised his hand, and Harry felt magic slam into him. Not an attack, but something subtler. A probe testing his bonds, looking for weaknesses. Fascinating. For genuine soul bonds and the capacity for many more. Do you have any idea how valuable you are? I'm not for sale. Everyone is for sale, Mr. Potter. The only question is price. Not's eyes gleamed. Join me willingly, and I'll release these prisoners. All of them. Continue to resist, and I'll drain them dry while you watch. Through the bond, Harry felt Fleur's rage, her desperation as she worked to free the Vila. Felt Daphne and Tonks and Sully fighting their way through the lower levels. Felt Tracy's terror and determination as she guided them through the facility. And he felt the Horcrux in his scar, responding to Not's soul magic, hungry to join the feast. No, he said quietly. No, I'm not going to be your tool. I'm not going to let you use me to enslave others. Harry raised his wand, feeling power gather. And I'm not going to watch while you hurt anyone else. Then you'll watch them die. Not gestured, and the crystal flared. The threads connecting it to the prisoners thickened, accelerating the drain. Fleur screamed as Vila she'd been trying to save began to convulse. Harry made a choice. He opened himself to the Horcrux completely. The power that flooded through him was immense. Dark, yes. Corrupted, yes. But also vast and hungry and his to command. The part of Voldemort that lived in Harry's scar had been feeding on scraps for years. Now, faced with Not's soul-harvesting machine, it wanted to feed properly. So Harry let it. The crystal shattered. Not from external force, but from internal Harry's dark power surging into it, overwhelming its capacity, turning it from a receiver into a source. All that stolen essence, all that hoarded power, flooding back into the people it had been taken from. Not staggered as his life's work collapsed around him. Harry advanced, and with every step his power grew. The bonds sang with it, his people adding their strength to his, containing the darkness while channeling it toward destruction. What are you? Not's voice cracked with fear. No one should be able to. I'm what you were trying to create, Harry said. A bondformer with power to match. Except I don't steal souls. I connect them. His magic hit Not like a tidal wave. The old man tried to defend himself, but decades of hoarding power couldn't match the combined force of genuine connection. Barriers shattered. Shields collapsed. And Harry reached into Not's magical core and tore. Not to kill him. That would have been mercy. He tore out Not's ability to use magic. The architect of suffering fell to his knees, suddenly nothing more than a very old man. His power stripped away like a bad dream. I could kill you, Harry said quietly. Part of me wants to. But death isn't enough for what you've done. Then what? You're going to live. In a world where you're helpless, where you have no power, where you'll be judged for your crimes by the people you hurt. Harry turned away. The Vila have their own laws. I expect they'll have opinions about someone who harvested their kind. You'll regret this, Not snarled. You don't understand what I've built. The organization will continue without me. You've won nothing. I've won tonight. Harry looked at Fleur, who was crying with relief as freed Vila began to wake around her. And I'll keep winning, as many nights as it takes. He walked away from the broken architect, his dark power slowly receding, contained once more by bonds that had held even through the storm. They'd won. For now. The aftermath was chaos in the best possible way. 43 Vila freed from the German facility. Another 27 from the cells below, including 3 of Fleur's relatives. Her cousin, badly weakened but alive, plus an aunt and a distant cousin she'd thought lost forever. The tearful reunion made everything worth it. Airy. Fleur found him later, her eyes red but her smile bright. I do not ave words. What you did. What we did. All of us. But you, Z power you used. I felt its rough Z bond. Z darkness. I know. Harry looked at his hands. I was careful. The bonds kept me grounded. But it's always going to be a risk, isn't it? Using that part of myself. Zen, we keep being your ground. Fleur took his hand, and through their bond, he felt her absolute certainty. You used darkness to save lives tonight. That matters more than Z source of Z power. Does it? To me, yes. She squeezed his hand. To all of us. Tracy approached him as they prepared to leave the destroyed facility. Harry. Her voice was hesitant. Earlier, you said anyone who sells a child to be experimented on deserves what's coming to them. I did. My stepfather is still out there. Still part of Knott's organization. Her eyes were hard. I want to help take him down. Not just for revenge, because he'll keep doing this. He'll keep helping them hurt people. That's a big commitment. I know. But I felt something tonight, being part of this. Being useful for more than just information. She met his eyes. I don't want to go back to being invisible. I don't want to pretend none of this happened. I want to fight. Harry felt his magic reaching for her again. The compatibility he'd noticed before stronger now that they'd been through combat together. The bonds are permanent, he said carefully. They're not just tactical alliances. They're connections. Real ones. I know. Sully explained it to me. Tracy took a breath. I've never had that. Real connections. Family that actually cares. What you've built here. It's the opposite of everything I grew up with. And you want to be part of it. If you'll have me. Harry looked at his other bonded. Gathered around them. All of them watching this moment. Daphne nodded slightly. Fleur smiled encouragement. Tonks gave a thumbs up. Sully simply waited. Her analytical eyes taking in every detail. Okay, Harry said. But like I told Sully, this has to be genuine. Not just tactical. It is. Tracy's voice was fierce. You saved people tonight. Dozens of them. And you did it with power that could have corrupted you, but you chose to use it for good anyway. That's the kind of person I want to stand with. Harry extended his hand. Tracy took it, and the fifth bond formed. It was different from the others, shaped by shared trauma, by the scars of families that had failed them, by a desperate need to prove that they could be more than what they'd come from. But it was real. It was strong. And it completed the pattern. 5 bonds. The minimum for the sanctuary. Harry felt the change immediately. His magical network flared, all 5 connections singing in harmony. And somewhere in the depths of his awareness, something ancient stirred. You have found what was lost. A voice that wasn't a voice seemed to say, you have built what was broken. The way is open. Come home. Harry. Daphne's voice was sharp with concern. What's happening? The sanctuary. He looked at his people, his family, with wonder. It's calling to us. I know how to find it now. Zen, what are we waiting for? Fleur's smile was bright despite her exhaustion. Let us go home. Home. For the first time in his life, Harry knew what that word meant. Not a place. Not a building. The people who chose to stand with you no matter what. Together, he said, and led them toward their future. Chapter 4. The ritual, the path to the sanctuary existed in the spaces between things. Harry led his bonded through a crack in reality that shouldn't have been visible, wouldn't have been visible to anyone without 5 genuine soul bonds and the ability to see the patterns underneath the world. Sully gasped when she perceived it, her gift for magical structures letting her see what the others could only feel. It's beautiful, she whispered, like a doorway made of light. Stay close, Harry said. I don't know what happens if we get separated in here. They stepped through together. The space beyond was impossible. Colors that didn't exist, painted landscapes that couldn't be real. Crystalline forests stretching toward skies that held 3 moons. Rivers that flowed upward into mountains that floated like clouds. Time moved strangely here. Harry couldn't tell if they walked for minutes or hours. But they weren't alone. Figures watched from the corners of perception. Not threatening but present. Guardians of some kind, testing the newcomers, deciding if they were worthy. Harry felt his bonds pulse with shared awareness. 5 people, 1 network, all of them facing the unknown together. Worthy, the not voice spoke again. Proceed. The path opened wider, and they emerged into the sanctuary. It was a valley, hidden between dimensions, existing in a pocket of reality separate from the normal world, but still real, still physical, still breathtakingly present. Mountains ringed the edges, their peaks lost in silver mist. A river ran through the center, feeding into a lake that reflected the impossible sky. And scattered across the gentle slopes were buildings, houses and halls and structures of every architectural style, as if generations of refugees had each added their own touch. "This is incredible," Tracy breathed. "This is ancient," Fleur corrected, her Vela senses drinking in the magical density. "Centuries old, at least. Maybe millennia. The original bond-formers built it," Daphne said, her voice hushed. "I've read theories, but I never thought. Nobody thought it was real." Harry walked forward, feeling the sanctuary respond to his presence. Magic thrummed beneath his feet, welcoming, connecting. This place had been waiting for someone like him, someone who could open the doors. A structure stood at the valley's heart, a great hall of white stone, larger than Hogwarts' Great Hall, its doors carved with symbols that matched the patterns Harry could feel in his bonds. "Enter," the presence invited. "Learn what you are." "Stay here," Harry said to the others. "Let me see what's inside." "Not a chance." Tonks's hair shifted to determined purple. "We came this far together. This place exists because of bonds," Fleur added. "We go as one or not at all." Harry didn't argue. Through the connections, he felt their certainty, their refusal to let him face the unknown alone. Together, they entered the hall. Inside was a library. Not just books, though there were thousands of those lining walls that stretched impossibly high, but also crystals that held memories, tapestries that showed moving images, artifacts that hummed with stored knowledge. A repository of everything the ancient bondformers had known. And in the center, waiting for them, stood a ghost. Not the pale, transparent spirits Harry knew from Hogwarts. This was something different, a projection, perhaps, or an echo preserved in magic. A woman with features that suggested a dozen different ancestries, wearing robes that hadn't been fashionable for centuries. "Welcome, young one." Her voice resonated with power. "You are the first to find this place in 400 years. Who are you?" "I am what remains of Seraphina, last of the great bondformers before the breaking." The ghost woman's smile was sad. "I chose to wait here, to guide whoever might eventually restore what was lost. The breaking, the war that destroyed the old networks, the purge that hunted our kind to near extinction." Seraphina's image flickered. "Your ancestors, the ones who could form true bonds, were seen as threats by those who valued power over connection. They were systematically eliminated until only fragments remained. Like me, like you, and like the few others scattered across the world, most never knowing what they truly are." She moved closer, examining Harry with eyes that seemed to see through him. "But you have done something remarkable. You have formed 5 genuine bonds without guidance, without training. You have found the sanctuary through instinct alone. I had help." Harry gestured at his bonded. "They chose to trust me." "Yes, that is the heart of it, isn't it? Choice, trust, connection freely given." Seraphina nodded slowly. "You understand the fundamental truth already. Bonds cannot be forced. They must be earned. I've been told I can form more, that my network could grow beyond 5. There is no theoretical limit to how many bonds a bondformer can sustain. The old networks sometimes numbered in the hundreds, entire communities linked through a central figure." The ghost's expression grew serious. "But with power comes danger. Each bond strengthens you, but also creates vulnerability. If even one member of your network is corrupted or compromised, the corruption spreads. Potentially, the bonds protect against external threats but not internal ones." Seraphina's gaze moved to Harry's forehead. "You carry something dark within you, a fragment of a soul that does not belong. The Horcrux. Yes, I can see the walls you've built around it. Impressive, given your lack of training." She paused. "But walls are not enough. Eventually, you must deal with it directly. Can it be removed? Perhaps. The old texts contain rituals for separating soul fragments without destroying the host. But they are difficult, dangerous, and require perfect trust between all participants. She looked at his bonded. You have the foundation. Whether you have the strength. We'll find out. Harry met her eyes. But first, I need to know everything. How to use my abilities properly. How to protect my people. How to fight the enemies who want to use what I am. Seraphina smiled. Then your education begins. Welcome to the sanctuary, Harry Potter. You have much to learn. The training was brutal. Days blurred together in the sanctuary's strange time. Longer inside than out, Seraphina explained. A feature designed to allow refugees time to recover before returning to the world. Harry spent those stretched hours learning things about magic he'd never imagined. The bonds weren't just connections. They were channels, conduits, pathways for power and emotion and even thought. With practice, he could share not just magic but memories, skills, knowledge. His bonded could do the same, creating a network where everyone's strengths became everyone's. Try again, Seraphina instructed as Harry failed another exercise. You're thinking of the bonds as separate threads. They're not, they're aspects of a single web. When you reach for one, you reach for all. Harry closed his eyes, feeling the familiar presences. Daphne's cool precision. Fleur's fierce warmth. Tonks's fluid adaptability. Sue Lee's analytical clarity. Tracy's survivor's instinct. Not 5 connections but one system, one family, one unit. He reached and the power answered. All of it. Not draining from his bonded but joining with them. Amplifying through their connections until he held more raw magical force than he'd ever touched before. Good, Seraphina said. Now direct it. Harry opened his eyes and unleashed a spell that carved a trench 50 meters long into the sanctuary's training ground. Perhaps with slightly more control next time, the ghost suggested dryly. The others trained too. Daphne learned to extend her ice magic through the bond network, creating barriers that protected all of them simultaneously. Fleur discovered she could share her Vila fire, letting others wield it temporarily. Tonks's shapeshifting became more fluid, more complete, as the stable core provided by the bonds gave her a foundation she'd never had. Sue Lee's gift evolved the most dramatically. With access to the sanctuary's knowledge and the amplification of the bond network, she could now perceive magical structures across vast distances, including the lingering traces of Knott's organization in the outside world. I can see them, she reported one evening, her eyes glazed with farsight. The remaining facilities, the cells where prisoners are still held, the lieutenants who are trying to reorganize after their leaders fall. How many facilities? 7 more that I can detect. At least 200 prisoners total. Her voice was strained. And something else. Something big. A gathering of Knott's remaining forces. Planning something. Planning what? I can't tell from here. The details are too fuzzy at this range. She blinked, returning to normal awareness. But whatever it is, it's happening soon. Harry looked at Seraphina. How long have we been here? In outside time. 3 weeks. The ghost's expression was grave. If Knott's people are organizing, they may be planning retaliation. Or worse. We need to go back. Harry stood, feeling his bonded's agreement through the network. We've learned enough to make a difference. The rest can wait. You're not ready. We're more ready than we were. And people are dying while we train. Seraphina studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. You remind me of myself at your age. Impatient, idealistic, determined to save everyone. Her smile was bittersweet. I couldn't save everyone. Neither will you. But you'll try anyway. That's the plan. Then take this with you. She gestured, and a crystal floated from the library shelves into Harry's hands. Everything I know about the Horcrux removal ritual. Study it. Prepare. When you're ready, truly ready, the sanctuary will provide what you need. Thank you. Harry tucked the crystal away. For everything. Thank me by surviving. By building what we failed to build. Seraphina's image began to fade. The sanctuary will remain open to you. Come back when you need rest, knowledge, or safety. It will always welcome its children home. She disappeared, leaving Harry and his bonded standing in the great hall alone. Well, Tonks said into the silence. That was a lot. At least we have a home now, Tracy offered. Somewhere they can't follow. And we know more about what we're fighting, Sully added. The organization, the remaining facilities, the gathering. Then let's go deal with it. Harry turned toward the exit. 3 weeks is a long time. A lot could have changed. They left the sanctuary together, stepping back through the impossible path into a world that had indeed changed while they were gone. The first indication was the newspaper. Daphne bought a Daily Prophet from a wizarding newsstand in Edinburgh, her face carefully neutral as she scanned the headlines. Then she handed it to Harry without a word. Potter declared Dark Wizard Ministry issues arrest warrant. Claims boy who lived responsible for attacks. Harry read the article with growing disbelief. According to the ministry's official statement, he had been corrupted by dark influences and was now leading a terrorist organization responsible for the destruction of the German facility and the murder of Arcturus Knot. Murder. Tracy's voice was sharp. You stripped his magic. You didn't kill him. Someone else did. Harry scanned further. Says here his body was found 2 days after we left. Ritual sacrifice, apparently. They're blaming us. Knot's own people killed him, Daphne realized, to prevent him from talking, and they're using his death to frame us. Convenient narrative, Tonks said grimly. Dark Wizard Potter murders respected pureblood elder. Ministry responds with manhunt. Makes the organization look like victims instead of perpetrators. It gets worse. Harry handed the paper to Fleur. Look at the sidebar. Vila attacks reported across Britain. Ministry warns of coordinated magical creature assault. Fleur's face went pale, then flushed with fury. Zai are blaming Z Vila we rescued, saying Zai attacked innocent wizards. The rescued prisoners would have talked, Sully said quietly. Would have told everyone what Knot was really doing. So someone made sure their testimony would be discredited before they could share it. The ministry officials on Tonks's list, Harry realized. The ones working for Knot. They're still in place. Still controlling the narrative. So we're terrorists now. Tracy's voice was flat. And the people we saved are monsters. And the real criminals are the victims. Classic power play. Daphne's ice-cold analysis cut through the shock. Control the information, control the perception. They can't defeat us directly, so they're trying to isolate us. It won't work. Harry's jaw set. We have truth on our side. We have rescued prisoners who can testify. We have evidence. Evidence that no one will believe if we're already convicted in the court of public opinion. Then we changed the public opinion. Everyone looked at him. We've been fighting in secret, Harry continued, ideas forming as he spoke. Hiding, running, only striking when necessary. That made sense when we were weak. But we're not weak anymore. We have 5 bonds, access to the sanctuary, training we didn't have before. We can afford to be public. Public how? Tonks asked carefully. We tell our story. Not to the ministry, they're compromised, but directly to the people. Expose the truth about Knot's organization. Show evidence of what they were really doing. Make it impossible to ignore. That would require getting our message out past ministry censorship, Sully pointed out. The Prophet is controlled. The wireless is monitored. There are other ways. Harry thought about the magical world, its communication systems, its weaknesses. Lee Jordan's been running an underground wireless show since Voldemort returned. Radio Free Hogwarts or something like that. If we could get him our story. I know Lee, Tonks said slowly. He's reckless, but he's honest. If we gave him evidence he could verify independently, he'd broadcast it. And we'd paint an even bigger target on ourselves, Daphne warned. Right now, the ministry is searching for us but doesn't know where to look. Go public, and everyone will be watching. Let them watch. Harry's voice was firm. I'm tired of being the villain in someone else's story. It's time to tell our own. They spent 2 days preparing. Sully used her farsight to locate the rescued Vila who hadn't been captured by Ministry forces. Most had fled to France, where Fleur's family was sheltering them. Fleur operated across the channel to gather testimonies, returning with crystal memories of what the prisoners had experienced. Daphne compiled documentation from the files they'd stolen from Webb's safe house, proof of Knott's organization, its connections to Ministry officials, its crimes. Tracy added her own knowledge, providing context that turned scattered evidence into a coherent picture. Tonks tracked down Lee Jordan, convincing him through a series of careful contacts that she was trustworthy and had information worth broadcasting. And Harry prepared the message itself. Keep it simple, Serafina had advised before they left. Truth is most powerful when spoken plainly. So Harry spoke plainly. He recorded a crystal message that laid out everything. His discovery of his abilities, the attacks by Knott's organization, the rescue of the Vila prisoners, the truth about who had really been committing crimes. He named names. He provided evidence. He asked the wizarding public to look at the facts and decide for themselves who the real villains were. This will make you a revolutionary, Daphne said quietly after reviewing the final version. There's no going back from this. I know. Harry met her eyes. But I'm not going back anyway. The person who tried to stay quiet, who followed rules, who hoped others would fix things. That person almost died on a bathroom floor. I'm done being that person. Good. She surprised him with a small smile. I prefer this version. The broadcast went out on a Tuesday night. Lee Jordan's underground wireless had been growing in popularity since Voldemort's return, the only source of news that questioned the Ministry's official narrative. His listeners numbered in the thousands, mostly younger wizards who'd grown disillusioned with establishment lies. Harry's message played in its entirety. The reaction was immediate. Some people believed. They'd suspected something was wrong, had seen the inconsistencies in the official story, had wondered about the disappeared Vila and the coordinated cover-ups. Harry's message gave them permission to trust their instincts. Others dismissed it as propaganda. The Ministry moved quickly, denouncing the broadcast as dark wizard manipulation, claiming the evidence was fabricated, warning people not to be fooled. But the conversation had changed. For the first time, there were public doubts about the official narrative. Questions that wouldn't go away. It's working, Tonks reported 2 days after the broadcast. My contacts say the ore department is splitting. Some are questioning orders. Scrimgeour had to personally intervene to prevent officers from investigating Knott's organization. And the public response? Mixed, but louder than expected. She grinned. You've got supporters, Harry. People who believe you. They're starting to organize. That's good. But it's not enough to win a war of public opinion. Harry had been thinking about their next steps. We need to do something visible. Something that proves we're telling the truth in a way people can't ignore. Like what? The gathering Sully detected. Knott's remaining forces planning something. Harry looked at his bonded. What if we stopped them? Publicly? In a way that made it impossible to spin as terrorism. That would require knowing what they are planning, Fleur pointed out, which requires better intelligence than we have. Harry turned to Sully. Can you push your farsight? Get more details about the gathering. Sully hesitated. I can try, but looking at something that hard, that specifically, it might alert them that they're being watched. Risk worth taking? She considered, then nodded. If it gets us actionable intelligence, yes. They gathered that evening for the attempt. Sully sat in the center of their circle, the bond network open to support her, all 5 of them lending strength to her gift. She closed her eyes and reached. The vision came in fragments. A manor house, old and dark, somewhere in Britain. Cloaked figures gathering in its great hall. A ritual circle drawn in blood on the stone floor. Voices, distorted but audible. Potter's message has complicated things, but the plan proceeds. The ritual will ensure no one can challenge us. Dumbledore's protections will fail once we... And then, clear as day, a figure stepping into the circle's center. Not, he was dead, but someone familiar nonetheless. Gray robes, cold eyes. The man who'd led the attacks on Harry twice before. Marcus Webb. Not just a lieutenant, apparently, but the new leader. The boy thinks he's won because he destroyed our facilities and killed the architect. Webb's voice echoed. But the architect's work continues. Tonight, we complete the binding ritual. Tomorrow, we take what should have been ours from the beginning. What binding ritual? Someone asked. The Potter boy's ability to form bonds. It was supposed to belong to us. We were going to harvest it, contain it, use it to build our army. Webb smiled coldly. But there's another way. The old texts speak of forced bonds. Not true connections, but chains of power that bind the unwilling. That's impossible. True bonds require consent. True bonds do. Slave bonds don't. Webb raised something in his hand, a vial of dark liquid. This contains the harvested essence of 47 Vila. Enough power to forge a chain that no one can break. Tomorrow, we use it to bind Potter to us whether he likes it or not. Suli gasped and broke the connection. She was shaking when she opened her eyes, sweat beading on her forehead. Tomorrow, she said. They're completing the ritual tomorrow. And they have enough stolen essence to force a bond on Harry. Can that actually work? Tracy's voice was sharp with fear. I've read about slave bonds, Daphne said slowly. They're dark magic. Ancient. The kind of thing that got bondformers hunted in the first place. She looked at Harry. If they complete that ritual with 47 Vila worth of essence, they could chain me, control me, use my ability to enslave others. Harry's voice was steady, but through the bonds, his people felt his horror. We have to stop them. We don't know where the manor is. I do. Suli's voice was strained but certain. I saw it. I can lead us there. Tonight. It has to be tonight. If we wait until tomorrow, we'll be too late. Harry looked at his bonded. They'd been training for weeks in the sanctuary's stretched time. They were stronger than they'd ever been. But they were also walking into a trap, because Webb had to know that Harry would try to stop the ritual if he found out about it. It's probably a trap, he said aloud. Obviously, Daphne agreed. We could be walking into overwhelming force. Probably. But we have to go anyway. Yes. Fleur's voice was fierce. Because the alternative is letting Zem complete that ritual. Letting Zem enslave you. Letting Zem use you to enslave Azairs. And that's not happening, Tonks added. Not while we're alive. Together, then. Harry reached for his bonds, feeling the network pulse with shared determination. One more time. The manor loomed against the night sky like something out of a Gothic nightmare. They'd operate to a forest a kilometer away, approaching on foot to avoid detection. Suli's farsight guided them past outer wards that would have triggered alarms. Daphne's training helped them move in coordinated silence. 20 guards on the perimeter, Suli reported in a whisper. Another 30 inside, plus Webb and his inner circle in the Great Hall. 50 total. Tonks's hair was battle black. Against 6. 5 bonds make us worth more than 5 individuals, Harry reminded her. And we have surprise. Partial surprise. They're expecting us eventually. Then let's not give them time to prepare. The plan was simple. Hit fast, hit hard. Don't stop until the ritual was disrupted. No complex tactics, no splitting up. Just overwhelming force concentrated on a single objective. They moved through the outer guards like ghosts, stunning and binding before anyone could raise an alarm. The manor's main doors fell to Daphne's ice magic, freezing and shattering in the same instant. And then they were inside and subtlety was no longer an option. For the Coven. Harry's voice rang through the halls, amplified by the bond network. Surrender or fall. The response was immediate. Guards poured from every doorway, spells flying. But Harry and his bonded were ready. They fought as one. Fleur's fire carved paths through the enemy ranks. Daphne's ice created barriers and traps. Tonks shifted forms constantly, impossible to target. Suli's precise curses found weaknesses in defenses. Tracy moved like a survivor, efficient and brutal. And Harry anchored them all, his bond-enhanced power flowing through the network, amplifying everyone's magic while deflecting attacks that would have killed any single person. They reached the Great Hall in under 3 minutes. Webb was waiting. The ritual circle blazed with stolen power, the essence of 47 Vila swirling in patterns of dark gold. Webb stood at its center, the vial of harvested magic in his hand, his expression calm despite the chaos. "Impressive," he said. "You got here faster than I expected. Step away from the circle." Harry's voice was cold. "Now. Or what? You'll kill me?" Webb laughed. "You had the chance to kill me before and didn't take it. You won't take it now either. That's your weakness, Potter. You still believe there are lines that shouldn't be crossed. There are. There aren't. There's only power and the will to use it." Webb raised the vial. "Watch." He poured the essence into the circle. The reaction was immediate. Dark power surged upward, reaching for Harry like a hungry predator. He felt it trying to latch onto his bonds, trying to force its way into his magical network, trying to chain him. And for a moment, just a moment, it almost succeeded. Then his people pushed back. Through the bonds, Harry felt them. Daphne's ice-cold determination, Fleur's fierce protection, Tonks's stubborn refusal to bend, Sue Lee's analytical strength, Tracy's survivor's fury. All of them rejecting the slave bond, reinforcing the true connections, creating a barrier of genuine love and trust that dark magic couldn't penetrate. The forced bond shattered against their unity. Webb's expression shifted from triumph to shock. "That's impossible. The ritual should have worked against a single person," Harry interrupted. "But I'm not single. I'm 5, and you can't chain what's freely given." He unleashed the full power of the bond network. It hit Webb like a physical force, driving him backward, slamming him against the far wall. The ritual circle destabilized, its stolen essence dispersing into the air. But not fast enough. "If I can't have you," Webb snarled, "no one will." He pulled a device from his robes, something that pulsed with dangerous magic. "This chamber is warded against apparition. When I trigger this, we all die together." "You'd kill yourself?" "I'd kill you. That's enough." His thumb moved toward the trigger. Tracy moved faster. She'd been drifting around the edge of the battle, unnoticed as always. Now she struck from the shadows, a curse hitting Webb's hand before he could activate the device. He screamed as his fingers shattered. The device clattered to the floor. Harry stunned him before he could recover. Silence fell over the Great Hall. The remaining guards, seeing their leader fallen, dropped their wands in surrender. "It's over," Harry said. But it wasn't. Not quite. Because the destabilized ritual circle was still releasing Vila essence. And that essence wasn't just dissipating. It was reaching for the nearest compatible source. "Harry, get back," Sue Lee shouted. "The essence is unstable. If it touches him." Harry tried to move, but the golden light was faster. It slammed into him, flooding through his bonds, overwhelming his defenses with pure magical power. Too much. Far too much for one person to contain, even one with 5 bonds. He was going to burn from the inside out. Through the chaos, Fleur's voice cut clear. "ZE bonds. Use ZE bonds." Harry didn't understand at first. Then he felt them, his people opening themselves completely, taking the excess power and distributing it through the network. Not just him absorbing it, but all of them together. It was still overwhelming, still dangerous, but shared across 6 magical cores instead of 1, the load became survivable. The Vila essence settled into the bond network, not as stolen power but as shared energy. Harry felt it integrate with his existing connections, strengthening them, deepening them. And something else happened. The essence remembered. 47 Vila had contributed to that pool of power. Their memories, their emotions, their experiences. Fragments of all of it still lingered in the magic. As the essence integrated, those fragments touched Harry's mind. Pain, fear, desperate hope, the feeling of being caged, harvested, used, and then gratitude, relief, the recognition that their stolen power was now being used by someone who would protect rather than exploit. "Thank you," 47 voices seemed to whisper. "Thank you for ending it." The voices faded, but the power remained. Harry's bond network hummed with energy that hadn't been there before. Energy that would take time to fully process, but that would ultimately make them all stronger. Harry! Daphne's voice was worried. Are you okay? He opened eyes he hadn't realized he'd closed. I'm fine. I think we all are. What happened? The essence integrated. Willingly, somehow. He looked at his hands, feeling the new power thrumming beneath his skin. The Vila who were harvested, they wanted this. Wanted their magic to go somewhere it would be used for good. Is that possible? Fleur asked. For essence to retain consciousness? I don't know, but it felt real. Harry straightened, looking around at the aftermath. Stunned guards, destroyed ritual circle, captured leader. We need to move. The ministry will have detected this much magical activity. And go where? The sanctuary first. Then we plan our next step. Harry looked at Webb's unconscious form. We've got their leader. Their ritual failed. But the organization isn't dead yet. It will be. Tracy's voice was hard. We tear it apart piece by piece. Every facility, every cell, every collaborator. Until there's nothing left. And then, Sully asked, then we build something better. Harry met each of his bonded's eyes. Serafina talked about the old networks. Communities built on genuine bonds. Maybe that's not possible anymore, but... He paused. Maybe it is. Maybe that's what we're supposed to create. A new network, Daphne said slowly. Not just the 6 of us, but everyone who wants to be part of it. Everyone who chooses to. Harry nodded. But first we survive. First we win. They operate out as ministry forces closed in on the manor, leaving chaos in their wake. The sanctuary welcomed them home. Harry stood at the great hall's entrance, feeling the pocket dimension respond to his strengthened bonds. The space itself seemed more alive now, more present. The essence integration changed things, Sully reported after running her diagnostic magics. Your bond network is significantly more powerful than before. The absorbed Vila energy acts as a kind of reserve, additional fuel that can be drawn on in emergencies. Is it stable? Surprisingly, yes. Probably because it was given willingly, even if the original harvest wasn't. She paused. There's something else. The network's maximum capacity has increased. You could theoretically bond with more people now without destabilizing. How many more? I'm not sure. Dozens, at least. Maybe more. Harry absorbed this. The ability to form more bonds, to grow his network beyond the 6 they currently had. It was both opportunity and responsibility. We need to be careful, Daphne warned. More bonds means more connections to protect. More vulnerabilities if something goes wrong. I know. I'm not planning to just recruit randomly. Harry looked at his people. But if we're going to build something bigger, something that lasts, we'll need more than just us. Who did you have in mind? Harry thought about the people he'd known, the allies they'd made, the potential connections they hadn't pursued. The Weasley twins. They've been running resistance operations through their joke shop. Luna Lovegood, her unconventional perspective might be exactly what we need. Maybe Neville, if he's interested. Friends from school. Tracy sounded skeptical. People I trust. People who've proven themselves. Harry paused. And maybe others. The Vila we rescued, some of them might want to stay connected. Other magical beings who've been marginalized, persecuted. We could offer them protection in exchange for partnership. That is a very different zings on what we ave now, Fleur said quietly. 6 bonded is family. Dozens is something else. It doesn't have to change what we have. The core bonds, the original connections, those stay special. Harry reached for the network, letting them feel his certainty. But we can't save everyone by ourselves. We need allies. We need numbers. And the Soul Bond network is the best way I know to build trust quickly. It's also the fastest way to get infiltrated, Daphne pointed out. If even one person in the network is compromised, that's why we're careful about who we add. That's why bonds require genuine emotional connection. It's much harder to fake than ordinary loyalty. Harry met her eyes. I'm not saying it's without risk. I'm saying the alternative, staying small, staying hidden, hoping things get better on their own, hasn't worked. It's time to try something different. The silence stretched as his bonded considered. Then Fleur spoke. I am with you. Ze Vila Ave suffered too much to stay hidden. If we can build something that protects them permanently, it is worth the risk. Same, Tonks added. I didn't join this to hide. I joined to make a difference. The logic is sound, Suli said carefully. A larger network is more defensible, not less, assuming proper management. And the additional perspectives would help with intelligence gathering. Tracy nodded slowly. I never had family until this. If we can give that to others. Everyone looked at Daphne. She sighed. I still think this is reckless. But, a small smile. Reckless has been working so far. Fine. We do this. But we do it carefully. Carefully, Harry agreed. Starting with people we already trust. And the Horcrux? Daphne asked quietly. Before we add more people, shouldn't we deal with that? Harry touched his forehead instinctively. The dark presence was still there, contained but not gone. The crystal Seraphina had given him held the ritual instructions, but it requires perfect trust between all participants, he said. That's what she told me. I think we need to be stronger together first, more practiced at working as one. And when we're ready, then we do it. Harry's voice was firm. But not until we're sure it will work. If the ritual fails partway through, the consequences could be worse than leaving it alone. Fair enough. Daphne stood. So, first step, contact your Hogwarts friends. First step, rest. We've been fighting non-stop for days. Harry smiled tiredly. Tomorrow we start building. Tonight we recover. They dispersed to their quarters in the sanctuary, but Harry lingered in the great hall. Seraphina's ghost was absent, but her presence still lingered in the accumulated knowledge around him. He pulled out the crystal she'd given him, turning it over in his hands. The Horcrux removal ritual, the key to finally being free of Voldemort's shadow. Not yet, he thought, but soon. Outside the sanctuary's protective walls, the world was changing. The Ministry was hunting them. Knott's organization was reeling but not destroyed. Voldemort was still out there, still gathering strength. But Harry had something he'd never had before. Family. Real family. Bound by choice and trust and genuine love. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. He went to bed with that thought warming him, and for once, his dreams were peaceful. Morning came with a message. The wards alerted Harry to a magical communication attempting to reach the sanctuary. Not hostile, but urgent. He accepted it cautiously, finding a paper crane similar to the one Suli had sent him weeks ago. The message inside was brief. Harry, things are moving faster than anyone expected. The Dark Lord has learned about your abilities. He's coming for you personally. I have information you need. Meet me at the old location. Please. Albus Harry stared at the signature for a long moment. Dumbledore, finally reaching out directly, after weeks of silence and apparent inaction. Could be a trap, Daphne said when he showed her. Could be genuine, Tonks countered. Dumbledore's many things, but he doesn't usually bait traps with himself as the lure. Why now? Fleur asked. Why reach out after avoiding us for so long? Because something's changed. Suli's voice was thoughtful. If Voldemort really is moving against Harry directly, Dumbledore might have realized he can't control this situation anymore. And he wants to help? He wants to be part of whatever happens next. That's not quite the same thing. Harry considered. He had no particular love for Dumbledore. Too many manipulations, too many secrets, too many times he'd been treated as a piece on a board rather than a person. But the old man also had information and resources they might need. I'll go, he decided. Alone. Absolutely not, said 4 voices simultaneously. He asked to meet me. He might not talk freely if all of us are there. Then he can deal with it. Daphne's voice was sharp. You're not walking into a potentially compromised situation without backup. End of discussion. Harry felt the certainty through the bonds. They weren't going to budge on this. Fine, he conceded. But you stay back unless something goes wrong. Deal. They prepared quickly en apparat to the coordinates Dumbledore had indicated, a remote Scottish hillside, far from any settlement. The old man was already waiting, looking more tired than Harry had ever seen him. "Thank you for coming," Dumbledore said. "I wasn't certain you would." "I wasn't certain either." Harry kept his distance. "What do you want?" "To help if you'll allow it. And to warn you." Dumbledore's eyes were grave. "Tom has discovered what you are. He's become obsessed. He views your ability as both threat and opportunity. He wants to use me. He wants to understand you first, then use you." The old man paused. He spent the past weeks researching soul bonds, forced connections, ancient rituals. The same research Knott's organization was pursuing. "We destroyed Knott's ritual." "Yes, and in doing so, you demonstrated something Tom hadn't considered." Dumbledore met Harry's eyes. "You showed that genuine bonds can resist forced ones. That willing connection is stronger than coerced power." This disturbs him. "Why?" "Voldemort doesn't understand connection." "Exactly. It's an entire dimension of magic that's foreign to him. And foreign things he can't control or predict, make Tom very dangerous." Dumbledore stepped closer. "He's planning something, Harry. I don't know what, but he's gathered his inner circle. He's preparing for direct action. Against me, against everything you've built, against the bonds themselves." The old man's voice was heavy. "He believes that if he can sever your connections, kill your bonded, he can harvest your ability the same way Nott tried to harvest Vila essence." Cold fury flooded through Harry, echoed by his bonded's reactions through the network. "Let him try. I'd prefer he not succeed." Dumbledore produced a rolled parchment. "This is everything I know about his current plans, movements, and resources. It's not complete, but it's more than you have." Harry took the parchment cautiously. "Why give this to me? You've always preferred to handle things yourself." "Because I've made mistakes." The admission seemed to cost Dumbledore. "I kept information from you. I tried to guide events from the shadows. And people suffered because of my arrogance." He looked old suddenly, tired. "What you've built, the genuine connections, the freely chosen bonds, it's closer to what magic was meant for than anything I've achieved in a century of work. I'd rather support that than continue pretending I know better." "Is this an apology?" "It's an acknowledgement. Apologies are words. Actions are what matter." Dumbledore straightened. "I won't ask to join your network. I don't deserve that trust. But I can provide intelligence, resources, protection when possible. If you'll have my assistance." Harry considered. Through the bonds, he felt his people's mixed reactions. Suspicion, hope, caution. "We'll take your intelligence," he said finally. "But you stay at arm's length. You don't make decisions for us. You don't manipulate us, for our own good. If you have concerns, you tell us directly and let us choose." "Agreed. And if you betray us..." Harry let the threat hang. "You'll do what you must." "I understand." Dumbledore nodded slowly. "Is there anything else you need from me?" Harry thought about it. "The Horcrux in my scar. You've known about it for years." "Yes." "Is there a way to remove it without killing me?" "I believed not. But the Sanctuary's knowledge may provide options I never considered." Dumbledore's gaze was thoughtful. "If you find such a method, I would help in any way I can. We'll keep that in mind." The old man departed, leaving Harry standing on the hillside with a parchment full of intelligence and a lot to process. "Well," Daphne emerged from her concealment. "What do you think?" "I think he's sincere. For now." Harry rolled up the parchment. "But I also think he's playing a longer game than we can see. So we use his information but don't trust him completely." "Exactly." Harry started walking back toward the apparition point. "Come on. We have work to do. More fighting. More building." He smiled slightly. "The Weasley twins first, I think. They've been wanting to talk to me for weeks." The future was uncertain. Voldemort was coming. The ministry was hunting them. But Harry had something he'd never had before. A real family, growing stronger every day. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. Chapter 5. Blood and Choice. The Weasley twins' shop was chaos given form. Wheezing whiz-bangs detonated in controlled bursts across the ceiling. Self-propelling hats zoomed between customers. A large cauldron near the entrance bubbled with something that smelled like burning sugar and mischief. Harry slipped through the crowd with practiced invisibility. Not magical, just the kind of anonymous movement he'd learned from years of avoiding attention. His bonded waited outside, spread across Diagon Alley in positions that provided coverage without being obvious. Fred spotted him first. "Oi, George! Look what the hippogriff dragged in." George's head popped up from behind a display of extendable ears. His grin was identical to his twins. Well, the most wanted wizard in Britain, browsing our humble establishment." "Keep your voice down," Harry muttered. But he was smiling. Right. Serious business." Fred threw an arm around Harry's shoulders, steering him toward the back room. "Come on, then. We've got a lot to discuss." The back room was somehow even more chaotic than the shop floor. Prototypes everywhere, spell diagrams covering the walls, and what appeared to be a small arsenal of modified joke products that looked significantly less funny than their commercial counterparts. "Been busy," Harry observed. "Resistance work requires creativity." George sealed the door with a series of privacy charms. "Speaking of which, your broadcast. Bloody brilliant. Half the wizarding world's talking about it. The other half's calling me a dark wizard. The other half are idiots who'd believe the prophet if it told them dragons were extinct." Fred dropped into a chair. "So, you're building something. Something bigger than just surviving. News travels fast. We have ears everywhere. Literally." George tapped an extendable ear prototype. "Modified version. Can't be detected by standard sweeps. Very useful for keeping track of what the ministry's really doing." Harry studied the twins. They'd changed since he'd last seen them. Still irrepressible, still chaotic, but with an edge underneath. War had touched them even if they'd hidden it well. "I need people I can trust," Harry said directly. "People willing to fight for something better. People who won't fold when things get hard." "And you thought of us?" Fred placed a hand over his heart. "I'm touched. We're also curious." George leaned forward. "The bond thing, is it real? The way you described it. Magical connections that share power and trust. It's real. And you're offering to include us in that? If you're willing. It's not a small commitment." Harry met their eyes. "The bond is permanent. It means trusting me with access to your magic, your emotions. It means being tied to everyone else in the network. It's intimate in a way." The twins exchanged one of their wordless communications. Something passed between them, consideration, calculation, decision. "Here's the thing," Fred said slowly. "George and I have something similar already. Twin bond. We've been connected since before we were born. Share thoughts, finish sentences, know when the other's in trouble. So we understand what you're offering better than most," George continued. "And we're interested, but we have conditions." "Name them." "First, we stay a package deal. You bond with both of us or neither. Wouldn't have it any other way. Second, we maintain operational independence. We run the shop, we run our intelligence network, we help your cause. But we're not soldiers waiting for orders. The network isn't about orders. It's about cooperation. Third," Fred's expression grew serious. "Our family, they're not all going to understand this. Some of them might even fight against you. Percy's ministry through and through, and Mum's terrified of anything that puts her kids in danger. We need to know you won't ask us to move against our own blood. I'm not in the business of breaking families." Harry's voice was firm. "I'm trying to build one." The twins shared another look. Then, simultaneously, they grinned. "Good enough for us," George said. "When do we start?" The bonding with the twins was unlike anything Harry had experienced. Where his other bonds had formed individually, Fred and George came as a unit. Their existing twin connection intertwined with the new bonds, creating something complex and layered. Harry found himself linked not just to each twin separately but to the relationship between them. It was disorienting and wonderful. Merlin Saggy, Fred gasped as the bond settled. Left buttock, George finished. That's intense. Through the network, Harry felt the others reacting to the new additions. Daphne's cool assessment, Fleur's warm welcome, Tonks's amused recognition of kindred chaotic spirits, Sue Lee's fascinated analysis, Tracy's cautious acceptance, and the twins themselves, suddenly aware of 6 other minds touching theirs. This is brilliant, Fred breathed. This is terrifying, George added. Both accurate, Harry said. You'll adjust. Can we? Fred started. Talk to everyone, George continued. Like we talk to each other? With practice. The bond network allows sharing, but it takes time to learn the nuances. Challenge accepted. The twins spoke in unison, their grins identical. Harry felt a surge of affection through the network, not just his own, but echoes from the others. The twins' energy was contagious, even through magical bonds. Welcome to the family, Daphne said dryly, appearing in the doorway. Try not to blow anything up. No promises. The twins responded together. The network expanded again 3 days later. Luna Lovegood had sought them out herself, appearing at the edge of the sanctuary's perception like a ghost made of moonlight and certainty. Hello, Harry, she said when he met her at the threshold. I dreamed you'd be ready for me today. Luna. He wasn't entirely surprised. How did you find this place? I followed the Raxperts. They're very attracted to genuine emotional connections. She tilted her head, her protuberant eyes studying him. You've grown. Not physically. The inside parts. I've had help. Yes, I can see them. The bonds look like golden threads from here, but I imagine they feel different from the inside. She stepped closer. I'd like to feel them. If you'll have me. You want to join the network? I want to belong somewhere that makes sense. Her voice was soft but certain. Most places don't. Most people think I'm strange because I see things they can't. But you see differently too now. We could see together. Harry reached through his bonds, feeling the others' impressions. The twins were enthusiastic. They'd always liked Luna. Daphne was skeptical but not opposed. Fleur sensed something in Luna that resonated with Vila perception. Tonks appreciated unconventional perspectives. Sully was curious about Luna's apparent ability to perceive magical structures. Tracy reserved judgment. It's not just about me, Harry said carefully. The bond connects you to everyone. I know. Luna smiled. I'd like to know everyone. In that deep way. I've never had that before. The bond formed gently, like sunrise rather than lightning. Luna's consciousness joined the network with a quality that defied description. Something dreamy and grounded simultaneously, seeing sideways at the world in ways that complemented everyone else's perspectives. Hello, she thought into the shared space. This is lovely, like being a drop of water that remembers it's part of the ocean. 9 bonds now. Harry's network was growing into something unprecedented. Neville's asked to meet. Tracy delivered the news a week after Luna's joining. She'd been maintaining contacts in the outside world, using her survivor's instincts to navigate the increasingly hostile environment. He's been fighting with the DA at Hogwarts, she continued, organizing resistance against the Carrows, the Death Eaters Voldemort put in charge of discipline. I heard. Harry had been following the news through various channels. He's become someone important. He wants to know if the network can help protect the younger students. The Carrows are using Cruciatus as punishment. Kids are getting hurt. Cold fury flickered through the bond network. Harry's, echoed by everyone else's. Where does he want to meet? Hogsmeade. Tomorrow night. I'll go. Harry looked at Daphne. You should come too. Neville's traditional. He'll be more comfortable if it's not just me. Because I'm so warm and approachable? Because you're strategic and smart. He'll respect that. They met in the Hog's Head, Aberforth Dumbledore providing cover with his customary gruff hospitality. Neville was waiting in a back room, and the change in him was striking. The pudgy, uncertain boy Harry remembered had been replaced by someone harder. A scar ran across Neville's cheek. His shoulders were broader, his eyes older. "Harry." Neville's voice was steady. "Thanks for coming. Thanks for reaching out." Harry clasped his hand firmly. "You've been busy. Someone had to be." Neville glanced at Daphne. "Greengrass. Didn't expect to see you here. Life takes unexpected turns." Daphne's tone was neutral. "We hear you're protecting students. Trying to. It's not enough." Neville's jaw tightened. The Carrows torture kids for fun. First years who don't bow fast enough. Muggleborns who try to hide. We've set up safe houses in the castle. Smuggling routes for those who need to escape. But we can't stop the worst of it. "What do you need?" Harry asked. "Resources. Training. Backup for when things get bad." Neville met his eyes. "And I need to know what you're building is real. The bond network. Is it actually what you described?" "It's real. Do you want proof?" "I want to understand it." Neville's gaze was assessing. "You're asking people to trust you with their magic, their minds. That's a lot to ask." "It is. That's why I only ask people who've already proven they can be trusted." "Like who?" Harry reached through the network, feeling his bonded respond to the invitation. One by one, they joined him in the back room, Fred and George through the pub's back door, Luna seeming to materialize from nowhere, the others following in quick succession. 9 people, all connected, all willing to let Neville see what they'd built. "Feel," Harry said simply. He extended a thread of the bond network toward Neville, not a full connection, just a glimpse. Enough to let him sense the trust, the shared strength, the genuine emotional connection that underlied everything. Neville's eyes widened. "That's..." He struggled for words. "That's real. That's not magic I've ever felt before. It's not common magic. It's relationship magic. Connection magic." Harry withdrew the thread. "You don't have to join. But if you want that kind of backup, the option's there." Neville was quiet for a long moment. Then, "The students. Could the network help protect them? Not just fighting the Carrows, but actually keeping kids safe." "We could try. The network allows coordination that wouldn't be possible otherwise. Shared awareness, combined power, instant communication. And the cost. Trust. Vulnerability. Letting us into your head the way we'd be in yours. That's terrifying." "Yeah, it is." Neville looked at the others, the Slytherin Ice Queen, the Vila Warrior, the Aura Rebel, the Analytical Ravenclaw, the Survivor, the Dreamer, the Chaos Twins. An impossible collection of people who shouldn't have worked together. "Okay," he said finally. "I'm in." The bond formed with the strength of someone who'd already proven his courage 100 times over. Neville Longbottom, who'd stood against Voldemort himself, who'd held together a resistance under impossible conditions, who'd chosen to fight when running would have been easier. 10 bonds now. Double digits. Harry felt the network pulse with new strength. Whatever came next, they were ready. But what came next arrived faster than anyone expected. 3 days after Neville's bonding, the attack came. Not on the sanctuary that remained hidden, protected. On Hogwarts itself. Voldemort had decided to make an example. "He's bringing his full force," Sully reported. Her farsight stretched to its limits. "Hundreds of Death Eaters. Giants. Dementors. Everything he has." "Why now?" Daphne demanded. "Because of us." Luna's voice was dreamy but certain. "We've been too successful. Too visible. He needs to show that resistance is futile. And he's starting with the school." Neville's expression was grim. "The students. The kids I swore to protect. Then we protect them." Harry's voice cut through the panic. "We get there first. We evacuate everyone we can. And we make Voldemort regret coming. We can't fight his whole army. We don't have to. We just have to slow them down enough for people to escape." Harry looked at his bonded. "The network gives us an advantage. Combined power, shared coordination. 10 of us fighting as one is worth 100 fighting separately." It's still suicide odds, Tonks pointed out. Better odds than leaving those kids to face it alone. Nobody argued further. They prepared for war. The Battle of Hogwarts began at midnight. Harry's network arrived through the sanctuary's connections, emerging inside the castle's wards before the main assault could begin. They had maybe 20 minutes before Voldemort's forces reached the gates. 20 minutes to organize an evacuation and prepare a defense. Neville, you know the castle best. Get the younger students to the evacuation points. Use the passages we mapped. On it. Neville was already running. Fred, George, you've been stockpiling modified products. Time to deploy them. With pleasure. The twins disappeared toward their hidden caches. Luna, you can sense magical structures. Find the weak points in the castle's defenses. We need to know where they'll break through. The astronomy tower and the boathouse. The wards are thinnest there. Daphne, Fleur, take the astronomy tower. Tonks, Tracy, the boathouse. Sully, stay mobile. Provide support where needed. And you? Daphne asked. I'm going to find Voldemort. Harry's voice was cold. He wants me. Let's give him what he wants, on our terms. Harry, no, Fleur started. I'm not trying to fight him alone. I'm trying to distract him while the evacuation happens. Keep his attention on me instead of the students. That's still suicide. It's strategy. And you'll all be with me through the bonds. Harry touched his forehead. Besides, he and I have unfinished business. The network hummed with reluctant acceptance. They didn't like it, but they understood. 20 minutes, Harry said. Then we fight together. Promise. He went to find his oldest enemy. Voldemort stood at the edge of the Forbidden Forest, his army arrayed behind him like a tide of darkness. Harry Potter. The Dark Lord's voice carried across the distance. You've come to surrender? I've come to talk. Talk. Red eyes gleamed with amusement. What could we possibly have to discuss? The soul bond in my head. Harry tapped his scar. The piece of you that's been living in me since I was a baby. Voldemort went very still. You know about that. I know it makes us connected. I know it's why I can feel when you're near, why I see your strongest emotions. Harry stepped closer. And I know it terrifies you. Nothing terrifies me. The bonds do. My ability to form genuine connections with people. That scares you more than anything. Because it's something you can't understand, can't control, can't replicate. I can destroy it. Voldemort's voice was silk over steel. Kill your precious bonded, one by one, and watch your network collapse. You could try, but you'd have to catch them first. Harry smiled coldly. And even if you did, even if you killed every single person I love, you still wouldn't be able to do what I can. Because you can't love. You can't trust. You can't connect with anyone except through fear and pain. Love is weakness. Love is the only thing you've never beaten. Harry's voice rose. Every time you've come for me, love has stopped you. My mother's sacrifice. Dumbledore's trust. The friendships that kept me sane when you tried to break me. You've had decades, armies, power beyond imagining. And you still can't defeat a bunch of people who care about each other. Voldemort's expression twisted. Enough. I didn't come here to debate philosophy. No. You came here to make an example. Harry reached through his bonds, feeling his people respond. So did I. He unleashed the full power of the network. It wasn't a spell. It was a statement. 10 bonded souls, their power combined and channeled through Harry, manifesting as a wave of golden light that swept across the battlefield. Not attacking, protecting. Creating a barrier between Voldemort's army and the castle that pulsed with the energy of genuine connection. What is this? Voldemort shrieked. This is what you can never have. Harry's voice resonated with combined strength. This is what you threw away when you tore your soul apart. This is why you'll never win. Death Eaters threw curses at the barrier. They splashed harmlessly against the golden light. The bonds held, 10 people acting as one, their trust and love made manifest. Behind the barrier, evacuation proceeded. Students flooded toward the escape routes. Teachers organized defenses. Every second the barrier held was another life saved. But it couldn't hold forever. Harry felt the strain building. 10 bonds was more than anyone had achieved in centuries, but it still wasn't enough to stand against Voldemort's entire army indefinitely. The power was draining. The connection was stretching. Harry, Daphne's voice through the bond. We can't maintain this. 5 more minutes at most. Then we make 5 minutes count. He pushed harder, drawing on reserves he didn't know he had. Everyone evacuated yet? Neville says another 100 students still moving. Then we hold. The barrier flickered. Voldemort pressed forward, his own magic hammering against the golden light. Behind him, his army readied for the moment the protection failed. For minutes. 3, 2, done. Neville's thought blazed through the network. Everyone's out. The castle is clear. Then we fall back. Harry began retreating toward the castle, the barrier contracting with him. Extraction points. Now, the network responded with perfect coordination. At 5 different points around the battlefield, bonded individuals disappeared, portkeys to the sanctuary that couldn't be blocked because they existed outside normal space. Harry was last. Voldemort lunged for him just as the extraction activated. Pale fingers brushed Harry's shoulder, and for an instant, the Horcrux in his scar resonated with its maker. Then Harry was gone, and Voldemort's scream of frustration echoed across an empty battlefield. The sanctuary received them with gentle warmth. Harry collapsed as soon as he materialized, the strain of maintaining the barrier catching up all at once. Hands caught him, Daphne and Fleur lowering him carefully. "That was insane," Daphne said. Her voice was harsh, but her hands were gentle. "You held that barrier for almost 8 minutes. Had to." Harry's voice was a croak. "Kids were still evacuating. You nearly burned yourself out. Worth it." He managed a weak smile. "Everyone make it?" "Everyone." Neville knelt beside him, his expression mixing relief and awe. 347 students evacuated. No casualties on our side. We actually did it. We did it together. Harry looked around at his bonded. All of them exhausted, all of them alive. The network held. The network was incredible. Su Li's analytical mind was already processing. 10 bonds, combined power, creating a physical manifestation of our connection. The theoretical implications can wait. Tonks cut her off. Right now we rest. We recover. We figure out next steps when everyone's not about to collapse. Nobody argued. They spread out across the sanctuary, finding beds and quiet spaces. Harry felt them settling through the bonds, exhausted but triumphant, afraid but not broken. They'd faced Voldemort's full army and walked away. Not victorious exactly, but not defeated. The students were safe. The castle would recover. And the wizarding world had just seen something they'd never seen before. The power of genuine connection, made manifest. Harry woke to Tracy shaking his shoulder. Something's wrong. He was alert instantly, reaching through the bonds. Everyone was present, everyone was safe, but Tracy was right. Something felt off. "What is it?" "My stepfather." Her voice was flat. "He sent a message. Says he wants to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" "My return. In exchange for..." She hesitated. "In exchange for information about Knott's organization. Real information. Locations, names, plans." "And you believe him?" "No. It's obviously a trap." Tracy met his eyes. "But some of the information he dangled is real. I recognize enough details to know he's not completely bluffing." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that my family has been hurting people for a long time. I'm thinking that I ran away instead of stopping them. I'm thinking that if there's even a chance to get real intelligence about Knott's remaining operations." She took a breath. "I'm thinking I need to see this through. You want to meet with him. I want to end this. One way or another." Harry sat up, reaching through the bonds for the others. They responded quickly. Battle readiness hadn't faded even during sleep. "We do this together," he said. "If you're walking into a trap, you're not walking alone. I figured you'd say that." Tracy's smile was small but real. The meeting's set for tomorrow. An abandoned warehouse in Manchester. Classic villain territory. Then we plan. And we make sure that, if it is a trap, we're the ones who spring it. The warehouse was exactly as cliché as expected. Tracy's stepfather waited inside with a small contingent of guards. Not Death Eaters, but private security. The kind of muscle that money could buy without asking too many questions. Tracy. Augustus Davis smiled as his stepdaughter entered. You look well. Better than I expected. Given the company you've been keeping. Augustus. Her voice was ice. You said you had information. I said I wanted to negotiate. His eyes moved past her to Harry. Ah, the famous Potter boy. I wondered if you'd come yourself. You knew I would. Harry stepped forward. The Bond network doesn't let members walk into danger alone. So the rumors are true. Soul bonds. Magical connections. Augustus's smile turned predatory. Fascinating. And potentially very valuable. Get to the point. The point, Mr. Potter, is that you've become troublesome. The organization I serve has suffered significant setbacks thanks to your interference. But we're not unreasonable people. We're willing to discuss terms. What terms? Leave Britain. Take your network somewhere far away, America, Australia, I don't care. Stop interfering with our operations. In exchange, we'll provide you with everything we have on the remaining facilities, the captured prisoners, the whole structure. Augustus spread his hands. Everyone wins. Except the people you keep hurting. The people we hurt are necessary sacrifices for a greater purpose. Surely you understand that. Dumbledore certainly did. I'm not Dumbledore. Harry's voice was cold. And I'm not interested in your deal. Pity. Augustus sighed. I told them you'd refuse. But they insisted I make the offer before. Before what? The trap sprang. Not from the guards, they were decoys. The real threat came from beneath the warehouse floor, where ritual circles had been hidden, now flaring to life with dark magic. Before we take what we need, Augustus finished. The ritual was designed to sever bonds. Harry felt it immediately. Hooks of dark power trying to tear at his connections, trying to rip his network apart at the seams. But the network wasn't just Harry anymore. It was 10 people, all of them fighting back. Hold together. Harry's thought blazed through the connections. Don't let them separate us. His bonded responded with unified strength. Daphne's ice-cold determination. Fleur's fierce protection. The twins' chaotic defiance. Neville's steadfast courage. Luna's dreamlike certainty. Tonks's fluid adaptation. Sue Lee's analytical precision. And Tracy, whose rage at her stepfather's betrayal burned hotter than any ritual. She moved before Harry could stop her. You sold me. Her wand slashed through the air, curse after curse flying at Augustus. Your own stepdaughter. For what? Money? Power? For the future? Augustus snarled, defending himself. For a world where the strong don't have to pretend the weak matter. The weak? Tracy laughed bitterly. You think I'm weak? You think the people you've been preying on are weak? She drew on the Bond network. All of it, every connection, channeling the combined power through herself in a way Harry hadn't known was possible. I'm not the scared girl who ran away anymore, Tracy said. Her voice resonated with 10 voices. I'm part of something you'll never understand. The ritual circles shattered. Augustus went down under a wave of magic that wasn't a spell but a statement. The full force of genuine connection rejecting everything he represented. His guards fled. The trap had failed catastrophically. Tracy stood over her stepfather's unconscious form, breathing hard, the Bond network still thrumming through her. That, she said finally, felt really good. They extracted Augustus and his intelligence. Turned out he hadn't been entirely bluffing. His files contained real information about Knott's remaining operations, locations of cells they hadn't discovered, names of collaborators. But that wasn't what stuck with Harry. What stuck was the way Tracy had channeled the network. The way she'd drawn on everyone's power without asking, without coordinating, just trusting that they'd support her. And they had, without hesitation. That was new, Sully said later, analyzing the magical traces. The bond network has been about sharing power, but what Tracy did was different. She became a focal point. She concentrated everything through herself. Is that dangerous? Daphne asked. It could be. If the focal point can't handle the load, or if the network doesn't trust them completely, it could tear everything apart. Sully looked at Tracy. But it worked, because we all trusted her in that moment. I didn't plan it, Tracy admitted. I just needed more than I had. And you were there. We'll always be there. Harry reached through the bond, letting her feel his certainty. That's what family means. Tracy's eyes glistened. I never had that before. Family that actually showed up. You do now. The network pulsed with shared warmth. 10 people, bound by choice, stronger together than they'd ever been apart. But Harry knew they couldn't rest yet. Augustus's intelligence had revealed something troubling. Voldemort's not just rebuilding, he said, sharing the relevant files. He's incorporating Knott's research, the soul harvesting technology, the forced bond rituals. He's adapting it all for his own purposes. What's he trying to do? Neville asked. Create his own network. Harry's voice was grim. Not genuine bonds, slave bonds. Chains of power that he controls completely. Can he actually do that? He's Voldemort. If anyone could figure out how to twist something beautiful into something terrible, it's him. Silence fell as they processed the implications. Then we stop him, Fleur said finally, before he completes whatever he's building. How? George asked. We hit his research facilities. Destroy the knowledge before he can use it. He'll have them protected. After what happened at the battle. Then we find another way. Harry looked at the crystal Seraphina had given him, still carried in his pocket. The Horcrux removal ritual. Maybe it's time to stop postponing. You said we needed perfect trust first, Daphne reminded him. I think we have it. Harry reached through the network, feeling every connection, every bond. What Tracy did today that only works if we trust each other completely. And we do. The ritual is still dangerous, Sully warned. If anything goes wrong, then we'll face it together, like we face everything. Harry met each of his bonded's eyes in turn. I've been carrying a piece of Voldemort in my head for 16 years. It's time to cut it out. And if the ritual kills you, then at least I'll die free. He expected arguments. Instead, he felt agreement flowing through the bonds. Fear, yes, but also determination. Readiness to face whatever came. Okay, Tonks said. Let's go home and study a ritual. The sanctuary's great hall became an operating theater. Sully studied Seraphina's crystal for 3 days straight, emerging with detailed plans and approximately 17 new concerns. The ritual requires all bonded members to participate, she explained, diagrams floating in the air around her. Everyone channels their connection through Harry simultaneously, creating a surge of genuine soul energy that overwhelms the Horcrux fragment. And if it doesn't overwhelm it, then the Horcrux fights back. And a piece of Voldemort's soul, empowered by our network's energy, would be very bad. Define very bad. Potentially possessed Harry attacks everyone bad. Silence. There are safeguards, Sully continued. The ritual includes containment elements. If the Horcrux starts winning, we can abort and seal it away again. But that would burn out the containment walls Harry's built. He'd never be able to control it as well again. It would be growing stronger while he grew weaker. So it's all or nothing, Harry said. We remove it completely or we lose control of it forever. Essentially, yes. Harry looked at his bonded. Through the network, he felt their emotions. Fear, love, determination. The fierce protectiveness they all felt for each other. I don't want anyone doing this out of obligation, he said quietly. If anyone has doubts, we don't have doubts. Daphne's voice was firm. We have concerns. There's a difference. She's right. Neville stepped forward. Of course we're scared, but we're also not letting you do this alone. Together or not at all, Luna added dreamily. That's been the rule from the beginning, hasn't it? Harry felt his throat tighten. Yeah, It has. Then let's stop wasting time. Fred's voice was uncharacteristically serious. You've got a dark wizard in your head, mate. Let's evict him. The network hummed with shared resolve. Tomorrow, Harry said. We rest tonight. Tomorrow we try to remove the Horcrux. And if it doesn't work? Tracy asked. Then we figure out another way. We always do. He went to bed that night with the bonds wrapped around him like armor, the presence of his family filling the spaces where fear tried to creep in. Tomorrow everything would change. One way or another. Chapter 6. The Coven Ascendant Voldemort and the Architect form an alliance of convenience. Final confrontation on multiple fronts. The corrupted bond, Horcrux, versus the true bonds. Harry must use everything he's built, everyone he's connected with. The Coven fights as one. The Architect falls. Voldemort is driven back, wounded in a way he's never been. The Coven stands, battered but unbroken. The world has changed. There's a new power, and it's built on connection, not fear. Ending hook. Other magical beings have sensed what Harry's building. They're coming, some to join, some to destroy. The story is just beginning. Ready to begin Chapter 1 on your prompt. Now.